Chapter 294. Jianghu Island, the Yang family land. In front of a vast Linghu lake, an old man faced Linghu lake and stood with his hands down. Behind the old man, a young and beautiful fair-skinned and beautiful woman with a slender figure saluted and said to the old man, "Grandfather." "Well, here we come." Yang Linyuan smiled and turned around, glanced at Yang Gongwan, who had been promoted to the late stage of Zifu, and sighed, "The essence of vitality is really amazing, but unfortunately the late foundation building cultivator sent by my Qin family to the true immortal origin realm is still too weak. The essence of vitality obtained can only add 3 cultivators of the purple house to the family." Hearing this, Yang Gongwan was quite puzzled. "Grandfather, both of you and I have been promoted to the late stage of Zifu, plus the 3 newly added cultivators of Zifu. There are only 5 Zifu in the Yang family. In addition, my Guang'an Immortal League has even given birth to 4 new cultivators of the purple house. To sum up, our Guang'an Xianming now has a total of 9 Zifu cultivators. The number of Zifu cultivators has already caught up with the Zhou family, the largest family in Guang'an. Our strength has increased so much. Why are you still a little uncomfortable, grandfather? Happy?" Hearing this, Yang Linyuan shook his head. Having said that, compared with our Guang'an Immortal League, the strength of the Zhou family, especially the Qin family, has improved even more. Qin family? Yang Gongwan was quite puzzled. If it is said that the strength of the Zhou family has grown horribly, Yang Gongwan can still understand it. After all, the Zhou family gave birth to the only Jindan cultivator in Sangzhou, and became the second Jindan family after the Yi family. In Yang Gongwan's opinion, although Guang'an House nominally owns the Zhou family, the Qin family, and the Yang family, in fact the Zhou family has far left the Qin and Yang families far behind, and they are the best in Sangzhou. Seeing Yang Gongwan's expression, Yang Linyuan roughly guessed what the other party was thinking, shook his head and said, "Although the Zhou family is amazing, but the Qin family is probably hidden deeper." He paused. "Did you pay attention when Zhou Laozu crossed the Golden Core Lightning Tribulation last time? How many cultivators of the Purple Mansion came to the Qin family?" Hearing this, Yang Gongwan thought for a while, then frowned slightly and said, "Including Qin Daoxian, the head of the Qin family, there are a total of 12. It's just that according to the family's information, there is no information about the woman beside Qin Daoxian." Yang Linyuan nodded. "It can be seen that you are very attentive to the situation in Guang'an Mansion. That's right, that woman is not from the Qin family. She is the princess of the Merman clan, and her name is Luoli. Luoli." Yang Gongwan whispered softly. "The mermaid race is the vassal race of the Qin family, which is no secret in Sangzhou. The transaction between the Qin family and the merman has long been no longer sneaky, but carried out in an open and honest manner. The strength has reached a certain level, and the trade that once needed to be cautious for fear of being discovered by outsiders is just a normal thing in the eyes of the Qin family. Of course, with the growth of the Qin family's strength, the merman trade, which once brought them great profits, has gradually become a bit tasteless now. If it weren't for the treasures like Shui Lingzhu, it would be very helpful to the cultivation of the low-level monks of the Qin family, especially the monks in the qi refining stage, and there would be calls in the Qin family to give up trade with the mere people. After all, the annual trade volume of millions of spirit stones is not even a drop in the bucket for the Qin family's net profit of more than 1 billion spirit stones a year. It is indeed a waste of energy to work hard to trade with the mere people. It's just that the merman is the only vassal race of the Qin family after all, and its political propaganda role is greater than the benefits it brings to the Qin family. The Qin family has never abandoned the merman, and is also using this method to tell the various races in the Wangxinghai underwater world that the Qin family is a family that is trustworthy and dependable, and everyone is welcome to come and join. In front of Linghu Lake. Yang Gongwan was still a little puzzled. However, what does a merman from the Purple House have to do with the terrifying strength of the Qin family? Even if the Qin family has 11 Zifu monks, the number of Zifu monks in our Guang'an Xianming is only slightly less than the other party. Even if Qin Daoxian himself is amazing, the loose cultivators don't understand this. They will only see who has several Jindan cultivators and several Zifu cultivators. You're right. Yang Linyuan nodded. But do you still remember the time when the mere people invaded the immortal city of Guang'an Mansion? Yang Gongwan's brows furrowed even deeper, but she still nodded. Remember? When the mermen invaded the immortal city of Guang'an Mansion, I clearly remember that the woman named Luoli was next to the leader of the mere people. At that time, her cultivation base was only in the late stage of foundation building. You said. What is the reason? Her cultivation level has broken through from the late stage of foundation establishment to the late stage of Zifu in less than 20 years? Hearing this, Yang Gongwan was startled. She looked at Yang Linyuan and said in awe, "The essence of vitality." Yang Linyuan nodded, turned to look at the lake and said leisurely, "It's the essence of vitality." The Qin family was able to give the incomparably precious vitality essence to their vassal Mer people. One can imagine how much vitality essence the Qin family has in their hands. Yang Linyuan was very determined. Therefore, there may be more cultivators in the Zifu hidden by the Qin family than we all imagined. Hearing this analysis, Yang Gongwan couldn't help but feel enlightened, and immediately felt a chill in her heart, so she couldn't help arguing. Could it be that Qin Daoxian fell in love with the princess of the mermaid and privately gave this precious essence of vitality to Luoli? I remember that Luoli's face was so beautiful. However, before Yang Gongwan finished speaking, Yang Linyuan looked at her quietly, so that she could not say the words of luck in her mouth. Seeing that her grandfather was a little dissatisfied, Yang Gongwan lowered her head and said, "Grandfather, Wainer knows it's wrong." "Hey Wainer, you have to remember that as decision-makers of the family, it's not terrible for us to make mistakes. What's terrible is that we don't admit our mistakes, and we have to go further and further down the wrong road." Yang Linyuan pointed out, the cooperation between Lingzhou City and the Zhou family to suppress the Qin family's Guanghai Xianqing can be stopped. In addition, it was agreed that the bank branch of the Qin family would be settled in Lingzhou Xianqing, and that the Qin family would promote Lingshi coins in Lingzhou Xianqing. "Grandfather?" Yang Gongwan raised her head in shock, as if she couldn't believe Yang Linyuan's decision. What the spirit stone coins represent, the big families in Sangzhou can't be more clear. In fact, Qin Daoxian is not the only smart person. More than one of the Yuanian clans in the Wangxinghai states thought about using other currencies or contribution points to replace the spirit stones as a general equivalent, but they all failed. The reason for the failure of these families is not complicated, that is, the excessive issuance of currency leads to the flooding and devaluation of currency. After all, few families can resist the temptation to plunder vast wealth at the touch of a finger. This is also the fundamental reason why all the major families of Wangxinghai failed to issue currency. At present, it seems that in the entire Wangxinghai, only the military merit system created by Qinyuan Jianzong is more successful. Qinyuan Jianzong's military exploits can be exchanged for spirit stones without hindrance. Among the high-level monks, there are also many items that use the military exploits of Qinyuan Jianzong to settle transactions. It can be said that Qinyuan Jianzong has taken a solid step in replacing spirit stones as a new type of currency for military exploits. But there is a fatal problem with the merit system, that is, the group of users is not widely used. In Wangxinghai, most of the base-building cultivators and the high-level cultivators above the base-building level have access to the military exploits of the Qinyuan sword sect. But for the vast majority of Wangxinghai's low-level qi refining cultivators, the proportion of them on the battlefield is very small, and it is not an exaggeration to say that they are 1 in 100 or even 1 in 1,000. Most of these low-level qi refining cultivators who have never been on the battlefield of Izumo country naturally have no way to gain military exploits. As for the exchange with high-level monks? Don't be kidding with the contempt chain of the practice world. There are several high-level monks who look at low-level monks, let alone the 3 melons and 2 dates exchanged by low-level monks. Qin Gongwan's worry, Qin Linyuan saw it in his eyes. He smiled and said, "Don't worry, the new currency introduced by the Qin family has also been tried by the Yuanian clan of Wangxinghai, but none of them have been successful. In the short term, letting Lingshi City use Lingshi coins seems to put all the trade in Linghui City under the control of the Qin family, but as long as the Lingshi coins depreciate wildly in the future, the current situation will be restored." Hearing these words, Yang Gongwan breathed a sigh of relief. Linghui City is the lifeline of the Yang family. Once this lifeline is handed over to the Qin family, it means that the Yang family has become a vassal family of the Qin family. This is absolutely unacceptable to the arrogant Yang family. Yang Linyuan thought for a while and continued, "Just like this, it's not enough to make up for the rift between our two families." Saying that, Yang Linyuan raised his hand. I saw a quaint tea sapling with a little aura appear in front of Yang Gongwan. Enlightenment tea tree. Yang Gongwan didn't know how many times she was shocked today. She trembled. "This is for the Qin family? Well, if there is a chance, I want you to hand it over to Qin Daoxian in person." "Yes." Yang Gongwan endured the heartache and lowered her head. Jianghu Island high altitude. A flash of light came swiftly towards Jianghu Island. Approaching the defense formation of Jianghu Island, the light stopped, revealing the figure of a slender woman. It was Yang Gongwan. Yang Gongwan, the head of the Yang family, asked to see Qin Daoxian, Qin Daoyu. Yang Gongwan looked at the brilliant defensive formation in front of her, and knew that this must be a high-level defensive formation above the third rank. So, a young figure flew out from the defensive formation. It was Qin Fuxing, the minister of the Qin family. Fairy Yang, the young patriarch asked me to invite you over. Fellow Taoist Qin, it's time to work. Yang Gongwan gave a blessing and said softly, "You are welcome." After all, the two flew into the defensive formation of Jianghu Island one after the other. Moment. In front of the two spirit lakes in front of the Jianghu Island Council Hall. Qin Daoxian looked at how Luo Li cultivated spirit scallops among the female cultivators, and couldn't help laughing. If your improved freshwater spirit scallop farming method can succeed, then my human monks can also breed a large number of spirit scallops. Thank you very much. In the center of Linghu, Luo Li turned her head and smiled shyly. Chen Lang made fun of me. Just as Qin Daoxian was about to speak, he sensed two escaping lights flying towards Linghu, and he couldn't help but raised his head and looked into the air. The two escape lights descended. It was Qin Fuxing and Yang Gongwan. Patriarch Qin, your concubine is polite. Seeing Qin Daoxian, Yang Gongwan gave him a salute, showing a charming look. Qin Daoxian raised his hand slightly and said, "You don't need to be more polite, fellow Taoist Yang." Yang Gongwan raised her head. Looking at this man in a white Taoist robe, standing with his hands behind his back, his handsome face is full of confidence. Yang Gongwan couldn't help but be in a trance. Once upon a time, Yang Gongwan still vividly remembers the cautious appearance of this young Taoist when she attended her grandfather's banquet in the Purple Mansion. But, how long has it been? Less than 20 years. In less than 20 years, a top family in Guang'an Prefecture and even the entire Zhangzhou has quietly risen. You must know that the rise of a cultivation force is 100 times or even 10,000 times more difficult than the rise of an ordinary monk. Ordinary loose cultivation practice to the nascent soul stage, there is still a chance. For more than 400 years, there were far more than 10 true cultivators of the nascent soul who were born in Wanxinghai. But there is no such big power as Qinyuan Jianzong. Some people may say that with the existence of Qinyuan sword sect, it is impossible for Wanxinghai to give birth to a second such great force. But in the same way, in the world of immortality, as long as there is a spiritual mountain, how can there be no owner? If you want to build a cultivation force, it is necessary and basic to have a vast territory. In addition, monks are also required to know how to operate, how to earn resources, and how to train disciples. After completing a series of things in the sect or family, in order to ensure that the big circle will not fall by the wayside, you have to ensure that your own strength is always in the first echelon of the cultivation force or even the first. Only by completing these can we guarantee the rise of a great power of cultivation. As for ordinary scattered cultivators, he can't even solve the resources for his own cultivation. How can he expect him to solve the cultivation resources of a big power? Therefore, Yang Gongwan felt incredible after seeing Qin Daoxian at this moment. In Wanxinghai, the rise of an individual is far simpler than the rise of a family power. Not to mention, it can be said that in Guang'an Mansion, there are many monks in the chi refining stage who have a good chance and have broken through to the foundation building stage in the Izumo Kingdom battlefield. Logically speaking, his family should become the foundation building family. But in fact, this foundation building family, apart from having this foundation building cultivator, the family background is not much different from the previous one. The reason is that in Wanxinghai, the monks in the chi refining stage are low-level monks, and the monks in the foundation building stage are also low-level monks. Even the cultivators of the Zifu period were not considered high-ranking cultivators. In the cultivation world, strictly speaking, only after passing through the Golden Core Thunder Tribulation and reaching the Golden Core stage can one be regarded as a high-level cultivator. As for the cultivator becoming Yuan Ing Jinjuan, and then developing the family, it will indeed make the family develop rapidly. But under normal circumstances, how many years does it take to give birth to a true monarch nascent soul? The possibility of an ordinary cultivator becoming the true monarch of nascent soul is too slim. Not to mention, even if a nascent soul true sovereign was replaced by Qin Daoxian, he probably wouldn't be able to do better than Qin Daoxian. Even true monarch Yuan Ying, not everyone can create a terrifying fairy city like true monarch Yuanqian. Friend Yang? Seeing Yang Gongwan's dazed expression, Qin Daoxian couldn't help but reminded softly. Feel sorry. Yang Gongwan's pretty face blushed slightly. I remember the first time I met Dao Yuqin and I can't help it. Hearing this, Qin Daoxian knew the reason why the other party couldn't help himself, and he didn't blame her but just smiled. Young Daoyu, isn't this trip just to catch up with me? Of course it's not just about catching up with fellow Taoists, Yang Gongwan said sternly. Actually, I came here to represent Lingrui City and apologize to the Chen family's Guanhai Xianqing. Chapter 295. Apologize. Qin Daoxian looked at Yang Gongwan with interest. What's wrong with Lingzhou City? Seeing this, Yang Gongwan smiled bitterly. Qin Daoxian is about to break his concubine. Lingzhou City and Zhou family together to suppress Guanhai Xianqing, it is indeed my Yang family's mishandling. Before Yang Gongwan finished speaking, he was interrupted by Qin Daoxian raising his hand. What you said is a legitimate competition among the three immortal cities, Guanhai Xianqing, Lingrui City, and Guang'an Prefecture Xianqing. Neither violates the decree of Qinyuan Jianzong, nor violates the morality of Zhangzhou fellows. What is the crime of your Yang family? Hearing these words, Yang Gongwan was a little unbelievable. She took a serious look at Qin Daoxian and found that he didn't seem to be perfunctory. Could it be? Is this what he really thinks in his heart? For some reason, seeing the faint smile on Qin Daoxian's face, Yang Gongwan suddenly had this idea. However, there is no legitimate competition in the world of immortality. Whoever has the bigger fist has the right to speak. Thinking of this, Yang Gongwan was a little stunned. If Fairy Yang is here for this matter, please rest assured that the Hui clan, my Qin family, will never resort to inferior means to your Yang family because of this matter. Even if Guanhai Xianqing makes a move, it will only be within the scope of fair competition. Hearing this, Yang Gongwan couldn't help clenching her slender fingers. She suddenly thought of something, stepped forward and said, Dao Yu Qin is so generous, but my Yang family treats the belly of a gentleman with the heart of a villain. Qin Daoxian waved his hands again and again. Yang Gongwan paused for a while, then continued, that being the case, my Spirit Day City wants to cooperate with Guanhai Xianqing. I wonder what Dao Yu Qin thinks? Oh? I don't know how Fairy Yang wants to cooperate. At the moment, Yang Gongwan recounted all the conditions that Yang Linyuan said. Qin Daoxian listened silently with a faint smile on his face. Will such conditions be too harsh on the Yang family? I don't think this is like cooperation, but it is like the terms of the Yang family vassalizing my Qin family. Seeing Qin Daoxian's words being so straightforward with Yang Gongwan's character, he couldn't help but feel a burst of resentment. But on the way to Jianghu Island, Yang Gongwan noticed dozens of Zifu cultivators after paying a little attention. Obviously, the strength of the Qin family is exactly the same as grandfather's speculation, which is really unfathomable. In Zhangzhou today, the most powerful family is not the Zhou family, but the Qin family in front of her. Facing the patriarch of the real first family in Zhangzhou, how dare Yang Gongwan get angry? Even if you are dissatisfied, you can only endure it. Qin Daoxian didn't care about Yang Gongwan's mood. For him, the little Yang family had long been ignored by him. What he sees now is the overlord-level family such as the Jiang family and the Ji family that dominate a state. As for the Yang family and even the Zhou family, the new Jindan family in Zhangzhou, they are no longer in the eyes of Qin Daoxian. As long as all the monks in Zhangzhou did not unite against the Qin family, the Qin family was not afraid of any family in Zhangzhou. With Qin Daoxian's reputation in Zhangzhou, as long as the Zhangzhou Qin family didn't do something outrageous, they would never encounter such a situation. Yang Gongwan calmed down and said softly, if you have to think so, Dao Yu Qin, it's not impossible. Before Yang Gongwan finished speaking, Qin Daoxian said, I take what Fairy Yang said seriously. What? Qin Daoxian said sternly, I said I took it seriously. Your Yang family is willing to be a vassal family of my Qin family. Qin Daoxian's action of hitting the snake and following the stick caught Yang Gongwan off guard for a while. She wanted to refute, but she was afraid of the power of the Qin family, and was extremely aggrieved. In the end, Yang Gongwan clenched her teeth secretly. That's all, Zhangzhou belongs to either the Zhou family or the Qin family. Anyway, we have to stand in line in the end, so it's better to make a decision earlier today. Yang Gongwan admitted that she was a little impulsive after being so provoked by Qin Daoxian. But in this world, it is impossible to have absolute certainty about everything. Moreover, the greater the risk, the greater the benefit. Nowadays, other families in Zhangzhou probably put their treasures on the Zhou family, a new Jindan family, and few families can discover the potential stock of the Qin family. Her young family got into the car early, and in the future she will be able to follow the dragon's work. Thinking of this, the anxiety in Yang Gongwan's heart disappeared. She remembered the words of her grandfather, those who do great things should never be afraid. As the head of the Yang family, Yang Gongwan is not only responsible for the rise and fall of the family, but also bears the pressure. Qin Daoxian looked at the resolute look on Yang Gongwankio's face and said, Can Fairy Yang be the head of the Yang family? Hearing this, Yang Gongwan didn't have the slightest anger on her face. only a calm expression. Since the corpse died in Changzhou, I have taken over as the head of the Yang family, and I can naturally decide the affairs of the Yang family. Okay, Qin Daoxian nodded, turned to Qin Fuxing beside him and instructed, go to your aunt and bring the family seal. Yes, young patriarch. Qin Fuxing bowed his hands in a salute, and immediately flew towards the discussion hall. Qin Daoxian turned his head. Can Fairy Yang carry the family seal? Of course I brought it. Yang Gongwan nodded and took out a small purple seal from the storage bag, which was the seal that symbolized the authority of the Yang family patriarch. Seeing this, Qin Daoxian nodded with satisfaction. Qin Daolian and Qin Fuxing flew towards the crowd together. Young patriarch. When Qin Daolian saw Qin Daoxian, she immediately saluted. Qin Daoxian nodded and immediately explained the matter of the Yang family's vassal of the Qin family. When Qin Daolian heard the words, her pretty face was full of incredible. The Yang family is the leader of the Guang'an Immortal League and one of the three major families of Guang'an House. Although the strength of the Yang family today is far less than that of the other two families in Guang'an House, it is not reduced to the point of being a vassal of other families. Unless. Qin Daolian glanced at Qin Daoxian, wondering what trick the young patriarch played to coax Fairy Yang. After negotiating the details of the vassals of the two clans, Qin Daoxian held a contract made of talisman paper and looked at Yang Gongwan and said, Fairy Yang, these treaties, are there any problems? Yang Gongwan read the vassal clauses of the Qin and Yang clans 3 times in a row. The vassal clauses were quite generous. In addition to obeying the Qin family's decrees in terms of grand strategy, it guaranteed the Yang family's considerable autonomy. Moreover, I don't know if Qin Daoxian was intentional or not, the vassal agreement signed by the Qin family and the Yang family only involved the Qin and Yang families, and did not involve the Guang'an Xianming. Doesn't this mean that the Qin family has no interest in the small families in the Guang'an Xianming, and the Guang'an Xianming will still obey the Yang family's dispatch in the future? I have to say this is good news. After all, no matter how small the mosquito's legs are, it is still meat. The Guang'an Xianming, which the Qin family dislikes, can bring a lot of benefits to the Yang family every year. Yang Gongwan checked the terms and confirmed that there were no problems. Both parties took out their clan seals and stamped their seals on the vassal terms. Suddenly, the terms made of the rune paper flew into the air, spontaneously ignited without fire, and eventually turned into ashes. At this moment, a faint connection appeared between Qin Daoxian and Yang Gongwan, just as Qin Daoxian did when he conquered the Mare people. The vassal clause, or the oath of vassalism, is different from the oath of the avenue, and its binding force is far less powerful than the oath of the avenue. Relying on this kind of thing alone, wanting to make another force completely surrender to oneself is a complete nonsense. The vassal between forces relies on the all-round influence and restraint of force, economy and even culture. On oaths and terms alone, that stuff is nowhere near as noble as paper in the toilet. Both parties sign the terms and conditions. A complex look flashed across Yang Gongwan's face. She formally knelt down and saluted to Qin Daoxian. Meet the Lord. Seeing that Yang Gongwan finished the big ceremony, Qin Daoxian stepped forward, helped her up in person and said warmly, It's all a family, so there's no need to be so polite in the future. Thank you, Lord. Yang Gongwan lowered her head and said. Seeing that Yang Gongwan was somewhat uncomfortable, Qin Daoxian took out a bottle of unused vitality essence from the storage bag, handed it over and said, This is a gift I gave to your Yang family as a vassal. Lord, it is absolutely impossible, this. Yang Gongwan was still refusing a second ago, but found that Qin Daoxian took out the essence of vitality, and abruptly held back the words of refusal. Seeing Yang Gongwan's pretty face blushing, Qin Daoxian couldn't help but laugh. Yang Gongwan took a deep breath, took out a spiritual tree seedling from the storage bag and said, This thing was originally an apology that my grandfather asked me to give to the Lord. Since the Lord forgives me for the sins of the Yang family, this thing should be my Yang family congratulates the Lord on breaking through the Purple Palace. Enlightenment Tea Tree. Qin Daoxian had not yet recognized the tree, but Qin Daolian, who was beside him, exclaimed, Do you recognize this tree? Qin Daolian nodded. The Enlightenment Tea Tree bears a piece of tea for 10 years, and a tea tree can bear up to 9 pieces at the same time. Each piece of tea can greatly improve the cultivator's understanding for about half an hour, which is a magical effect. Speaking of this, Qin Daolian couldn't help but sound the effect of the young patriarch's sermon, and immediately came back to his senses. Dao Enlightenment Tea is indeed a treasure that enhances the background for other forces, but for the Qin family, it's just icing on the cake. If the young patriarch takes some time to preach to the elite children of the clan, the effect is not sure how many times better than this tea for enlightenment. Qin Daoxian naturally understands this truth, but this thing is the Yang family's heart and he accepts it. Even if the disciples of the Qin family don't have access to Dao enlightenment tea, it would be good to trade this thing with others or give it as a gift in the future. In a good mood, Qin Daoxian and Luo Li personally sent Yang Gongwan to the outside of the defense formation on Jianghu Island. Fairy Yang, the journey is smooth sailing. Inherit the Lord's auspicious words. Yang Gongwan saluted again and immediately disappeared in front of Qin Daoxian. Seeing Yang Gongwan flying away, Luo Li raised her head and looked at Qin Daoxian's side face and said, "Qin Lang, are you going to conquer the major families in Sangzhou next?" Qin Daoxian shook his head. "It's just a matter of course, even if the Yang family doesn't agree today, it's nothing. For my Qin family, the most important thing is always our own strength and the vassal of external forces, but it's just the icing on the cake. Besides, if the Qin family is not strong enough, what is the use of having more vassal forces?" Hearing this, Luo Li nodded thoughtfully. She couldn't help but think of her own mercenary family, which was too weak for the current Qin family. Her identity as a princess of the mermaid race is increasingly incompatible with Qin Daoxian. Although Luo Li knew that Qin Daoxian never cared about this, no one in the Qin family dared to point fingers at Qin Daoxian's Dao companion except Qin Xianhe. But Luo Li herself didn't want to be reduced to a useless vase. She had a hard life in Wanxinghai and understood that if she wanted the two sides to go further together, she could only do her best to keep up with Qin Daoxian's pace. At least, she has to keep up with Qin Daoxian's footsteps in terms of cultivation. At present, it seems that Qin Daoxian and her cultivation base are the same, and they are both on the 9th floor of Zifu. However, the 9th floor of the Purple Mansion is different from the 9th floor of the Purple Mansion. With Qin Daoxian's Dao realm, he can break through to the Golden Core stage at any time. For Luo Li, the Golden Core stage is still a distant realm. In particular, in order to transform and advance, she wasted an opportunity to advance to the Bloodline supernatural power, and the resistance to breaking through the Jindan stage will be even greater in the future. "What's up?" As if sensing the strangeness of the beautiful woman beside him, Qin Daoxian turned his head and asked. "Nothing." Luo Li shook her head and smiled. "Where shall we go next? Lingbei have all been raised in Linghu. Whether they can succeed or not depends on the will of God." Qin Daoxian thought for a while and said with a smile, "Since the affairs of the clan are temporarily over, why don't you go see your father-in-law?" "What?" Luo Li was a little overwhelmed. She gently rubbed the skirt with her hand. "This? Whatever this or that, it's better to hit the sun if you choose a day, it's better to hit the sun now, go now." Luo Li only felt her little hand tighten. It turned out to be held by Qin Daoxian. Immediately afterwards there was a gust of speed. Looking at the tall figure in front of her, the tension in Luo Li's heart gradually dissipated, and she only felt a burst of sweetness. This feeling was like the first time she held Qin Daoxian's hand and swam to the bottom of Wanxinghai together. Just when Luo Li missed it. "Arrive." Hearing the words in his ear, Luo Li looked up. Sure enough, it was the sea area of the Demon Mountain. Qin Daoxian smiled at her and then plunged into the sea with her. Compared to when they were in the qi refining period, the speed of the two of them under the water was several times faster. Less than a stick of incense time. The two came to the Magic Monkey Mountain. When Qin Daoxian came to the bottom of Wanxinghai, the so-called meeting his father-in-law was second. His real purpose was to accept the inheritance trial of Wanxinghai again. Moreover, he intends to break through to the Golden Core stage in the Magic Monkey Mountain. Similar to breaking through the foundation building stage and breaking through the Purple Palace stage, breaking through the Golden Core stage also has requirements on the spiritual veins. Qin Daoxian broke through the Purple Mansion in the true immortal origin realm. The reason why he did not have the requirements on the spiritual veins was because the consumption of his breakthrough through the Purple Mansion period was all provided by the essence of vitality. When he breaks through to the Golden Core stage in the future, there will be no vitality essence for him to squander. The essence of vitality can only be stored for a few months at most, and I have to say this is really a pity. Of course there is not much regret. The key to breaking through the Golden Core stage is not the formation of the core, but the Golden Core Thunder Tribulation after the core. In the immortal cultivation world, many cultivators of Zifu did not have the confidence to form pills, but did not have the confidence to survive the Golden Core Thunder Tribulation. Especially after Qin Daoxian saw the horror of the Golden Core Thunder Tribulation with his own eyes, he understood even more why the cultivators of the Zifu were afraid of the Golden Core Thunder Tribulation. Even now, he doesn't dare to say that he can 100% successfully transcend the tribulation without any accident. Among the triple calamities of the Golden Core Thunder Tribulation, Qin Daoxian was the least confident about the simplest physical calamity. Because of his body refinement, he has only just reached the lowest limit for passing the Golden Core Thunder Tribulation, the peak of the flesh derivative realm. Chapter 296. Demon Mountain. Qin Lang, when you speak of the Wuxia inheritance trial, you mean the sea of stars above our heads? Luoli tilted her head and asked curiously. Right? Qin Daoxian nodded. The trial of Wuxia inheritance should not be a secret among the major forces. As far as I know, both the Jiang family and Qinyuan Jianzong know this inheritance. What? Luoli covered her small mouth. Isn't this inheritance preempted by others? It's not that simple. Qin Daoxian shook his head with a smile. The inheritance of Wuxia has existed for hundreds of thousands of years, and no one should have obtained this inheritance in its entirety. The reason why Qin Daoxian made this judgment is because he has an unparalleled comprehension advantage compared to other testers. Even so, Qin Daoxian still did not obtain this inheritance. As for other testers like Yi Wudao and Jiang Chenai, they wear a pattern on their foreheads all day long, for fear that others will not know the identity of their Wuxia inheritance testers, let alone that. Luoli didn't know what to say, and suddenly felt a sense of urgency in her heart. In her heart, this kind of top inheritance naturally hopes that her sweetheart will get it, but she can't help Qin Daoxian at the moment, so she can only be anxious. Seeing the anxious look in Luoli's eyes, Qin Daoxian stroked her hair and said, Don't worry, I'm here this time to completely win this inheritance. In words, he is confident in living this inheritance. Hearing this, Luoli's sly eyes flashed away and she said, Didn't you say, this trip is to see my father? Hearing this, Qin Daoxian froze and was speechless. Seeing this, Luoli's eyes curved into crescents and she covered her mouth and laughed. Between the two talking. Soon he arrived at the magic Monkey Mountain Canyon, where Qin Daoxian had retreated before. After entering the formation, the sea water disappeared immediately, and in the middle of the canyon the passage of the true demon world, which was like a black hole, became much larger to the naked eye. In the previous passage of the true demon realm, only one person could pass through curled up. Today the opening of this passage is almost 3 feet in diameter, which is several times larger. In front of the true demon realm passage, a black-robed Taoist sat on the ground. This black-robed Taoist looks very familiar, and looks somewhat similar to Qin Daoxian. Seeing this, Luoli glanced at Qin Daoxian strangely. She clearly sensed that the cultivation of the black-robed Taoist was not high, only the second floor of the foundation. The body training is quite high, and like Qin Daoxian he has reached the peak of flesh and blood. Qin Lang. Luoli hasn't said a word yet. The black-robed Taoist in front of him took the initiative to stand up and turn his head. Seeing the appearance of the black-robed Taoist, Luoli couldn't help covering her mouth and said in surprise, Clone? Exactly. Qin Daoxian smiled and nodded. This black-robed Taoist is none other than the black-robed avatar he left behind to guard the family and the passage to the real demon world. After nearly a year, the chi-refining cultivation of the black-robed clone has only been upgraded to the second floor of the foundation establishment, but with the help of the blood crystals, the body-refining cultivation has advanced by leaps and bounds, reaching the peak of the flesh derivative realm, which is equivalent to the peak of the foundation establishment realm. Coupled with the second-level kendo realm, the black robe clone is also a purple mansion level combat power. Of course, the battle strength of the purple mansion was nothing to the current Qin Daoxian. The strength of the black robe clone is 108,000 miles worse than the deity. In addition to the gap in the realm of the great Tao, there is a huge gap in cultivation, magic tools, magical powers, etc. The two are not on the same level. Qin Daoxian sacrificed the black robe clone to explore the real demon world. Although he took into account the potential of the clone at that time, he used the black robe clone that was refined by his own flesh and blood. But the progress of Qin Daoxian's deity is too fast. Even if the black robe clone has more resources, it can't keep up with the footsteps of Qin Daoxian's deity. This is also impossible. The Hongmeng Enlightenment Classic can only be used by the deity alone, and even Qin Daoxian's clone cannot use it. Coupled with the various opportunities he obtained in the true immortal origin realm, it would be a ghost if the black robe clone could keep up with his footsteps. The black robe clone walked to Qin Daoxian and stopped. Qin Daoxian raised his hand and synchronized the memories of both sides. Through the memory of the black robe clone, Qin Daoxian knew about his experience during this time. In general, during the time he went to Taizhou and the true immortal origin realm, the Black Robe Avatar spent all the time in cultivation. Every day either refining spiritual energy or using blood crystals to refine the body. As for the Tao of Comprehension, Chen Daoxian finally saw it. Without the help of the Hongmeng Enlightenment Classic, he realized the true speed of the Tao. For nearly a year, the black-robed avatar has been cultivating hard day and night, of which almost half of the time spent comprehending the Tao, but despite this, the opponent's Tao realm has hardly improved. At least in Chen Daoxuan's eyes, he could not feel any progress in the Tao realm of the Black Robe clone. Before he went to Taizhou, the Avenue realm of the Black Robe clone was probably the second highest level of the visible realm, and it was only a line away from the peak of the visible realm. But after nearly a year of hard work, the realm of the Avenue is still a thin line away from the peak of the tangible realm. Chen Daoxian finally understood why Zhou Mingho had been practicing hard for hundreds of years, but he was still trapped in the peak of the tangible realm and could not make an inch. There is no plug-in, relying on oneself alone, it is too difficult to comprehend the Tao. As the cultivation level became higher and higher, Chen Daoxian became more and more aware of the perversion of the golden scriptures in the Sea of Knowledge. Although Chen Daoxian didn't know the origin of the golden scriptures, the help of the golden scriptures to his practice was really too great. Without the golden scriptures, Chen Daoxian, let alone the invincible Zifu, is still on Jianghu Island, worrying about the little cultivation resources. It's hard to guess what happens in life. Chen Lang, what did you say? Lori turned her head. Nothing. Chen Daoxian smiled, then glanced at the Black Robe clone. During this period of time, the only thing that Chen Daoxian was more satisfied with his clone was that the other party had cultivated soul-setting divine light and successfully created the Sea of Divine Light in the Sea of Consciousness. Although the area of the Sea of Light of the Black Robe clone is far from being comparable to that of the deity, it now has a radius of more than 30 miles. Although it can't compare to the Zifu cultivator, it is much stronger than the average foundation-building cultivator. When Chen Daoxian was in the foundation-building period, his Sea of Consciousness reached a radius of 100 miles, not relying on the Sea of Divine Light, but the help of golden scriptures. But unfortunately, when Chen Daoxian broke through the Zifu period, the golden scriptures did not help him open up the Sea of Knowledge. He didn't know the mystery of this, so he could only use the Sea of Consciousness that opened up when he built the foundation as a golden inscription. He hated that the house it lived in was too small, and simply wanted to make it bigger. Chen Daoxian had a hunch that this might be the real purpose of the golden scriptures, helping him open up the Sea of Knowledge when building the foundation. It is also very simple to verify it. When you break through the golden core stage, you will know if it will help you to open up the Sea of Knowledge. If you don't help, Chen Daoxuan's guess is very likely to be the truth. Putting away the distracting thoughts in his mind, Chen Daoxian patted the storage bag on his waist, and took out a treasure tree overflowing with spiritual light, which was the Tao Enlightenment tea tree given to the Chen family by Yang Gongwan. Chen Daoxian gently picked off the 3 remaining leaves on the tea tree, and then put away the tea tree. The next moment he took out a teacup from the storage bag, put 3 pieces of tea leaves in the teacup, poured in the water of the spiritual spring, and then boiled it with magic power. After a while, the fragrance of tea overflows, which is refreshing. Try it, this is my first time making tea for someone. Chen Daoxian handed over the teacup in his hand. This is, for me? Luoli was a little helpless. You and I are Taoist companions. It is the righteousness to support each other. You don't have to be polite to your husband. Hearing the words husband, Luoli's pretty face blushed slightly, took the teacup, lowered her head and took a quick sip, then drank it in one sip. After drinking the Enlightenment tea, Luoli's eyes suddenly blurred, and Chen Daoxian quickly transmitted his voice. Luoli, look up. In a trance, Luoli raised her head and looked at the sky full of stars at the bottom of Wanxinghai. Success or failure can only be seen by the will of God. Chen Daoxian glanced at Luoli, then sat down next to her and closed his eyes. As Chen Daoxuan's eyes were closed, the divine pattern between his eyebrows instantly lit up, and his consciousness flew higher and higher until he came to the sun-like stars. You came. Amidst the sun-like stars, a Taoist man in white stood in front of a palace. Next to the palace, a laurel tree stands. Senior. Seeing the Taoist in white, Chen Daoxian respectfully saluted. After many contacts, Chen Daoxian discovered that the Taoist in white was not an unconscious program he had imagined. The other party is conscious, but the emotions are extremely indifferent compared to ordinary monks. More than a year is just a snap of time for the Taoist white-clothed guardian who has inherited hundreds of thousands of years of existence. 6-arm strike, can you learn it? The Taoist man in white looked at Qin Daoxian. Hearing this, Qin Daoxian didn't talk nonsense and immediately displayed 3 heads and 6 arms. Then, 6 fourth-order fairy swords automatically appeared in his hand. 6 arms strike. Qin Daoxian snorted softly, and then the 6 sword lights merged into one, and pointed towards the white-clothed Taoist. Good. The Taoist man in white nodded lightly, with a rare look of satisfaction on his face. I saw him stretch out his right index finger and move forward a little, and suddenly the sword light shattered. Seeing that his attack was easily broken by the Taoist in white, Qin Daoxian was not surprised at all. From the memory of the deceased immortal, we can know that this inheritance is very likely to come from the legendary fairyland. It is not surprising that the Taoist in white has such strength. Besides, this inheritance space is a kind of existence similar to the Sea of Knowledge, and Qin Daoxian only exists here with consciousness at this moment. After breaking Qin Daoxian's sword light, a smile appeared on the face of the Taoist man in white. Congratulations, you are the 971st tester who has reached this point since the 3 Yuan meeting. However, if you want to obtain this inheritance, this is just the beginning, and you must be prepared for this in your heart. Hearing this, Qin Daoxian couldn't help remembering that he was the 19,769th tester who accepted this inheritance. It sounds like the Sanyuan society, that is, more than 380,000 years ago, there have been more than 10,000 trialists, which is very small. In an average of several decades, there is only one more inheritance tester in this world. But in fact, the inheritance of Wan Xinghai has been here for hundreds of thousands of years, and it was really discovered by the outside world after the Qianyuan sword sect defeated Wan Xinghai. In other words, this inheritance really exists in the world only for thousands of years. Over thousands of years, there have been nearly 20,000 heritage trialists, and this frequency can be said to be quite high. If it weren't for the fact that this inheritance has a threshold, and the subsequent talent requirements for the inheritance testers are extremely abnormal, I am afraid that the testers will be able to line up to the Qianyuan sword sect. Even if the threshold is so high, there are many testers of this inheritance, such as Yi Wudao, Jiang Chenai and others. If the 2 of them rely on their own understanding, they will not be able to obtain the qualification for the trial at all. The reason why the 2 of them obtained the qualification for the trial was the same as the Enlightenment tea that Qin Daoxian drank for Luoli, and they adopted tricks. Actually, Qin Daoxian was able to obtain the qualification for the trial, but also by means of tricks, but this trick he took, almost no one in the world can take it. Of the 20,000 testers, only 971 could reach Qin Daoxian's step. The elimination rate has reached more than 95%, which can be said to be very high. You must know that normally, those who can obtain the qualifications for inheritance trials are inherently extremely talented. If you don't use cheating methods, at least you have to be the top 3 or even the first talent in the Zifu Tianjiao list. Even so, there are still more than 95% elimination rate, which shows how harsh this inheritance is. As soon as the Taoist in white finished speaking, he waved his sleeves, and the scene in front of Qin Daoxian changed instantly. Next moment, a towering tower appeared in front of Qin Daoxian. This is the Tower of Babel, the Taoist in white said. A flash of reminiscence flashed in his eyes. This is a small test to accept the inheritance of our sect. Qin Daoxian has come to this day step by step in the inheritance trial space, and he does not believe in the so-called small test in the mouth of Bai Daoist. You know, if there is no Hongmeng Enlightenment Classic to help him hang up, Qin Daoxian may not even pass the first test. The Taoist in white didn't know what he was thinking and continued, before entering the Tongtian Tower, you need to make a choice. Choose. Qin Daoxian's face suddenly showed interest. He was very curious as to what the choice of Taoist Bai was. The Taoist man in white didn't give a shit, he just waved his sleeves again. Suddenly, 3 treasures appeared in front of Qin Daoxian. The first treasure is a small tower. The appearance of this small pagoda is simple and unremarkable, but it exudes a charm that transcends the heavens. Even an ordinary person who has not practiced can see the extraordinariness of this small pagoda. The second treasure is a small flag. Different from the Mi-Qin fan in Qin Daoxian's hands, when he saw this small fan, he had a feeling that his soul was shaken out of his body. But the golden scriptures in his consciousness sea were shaken gently, and the feeling of separation from the body suddenly disappeared. You must know that Qin Daoxian is only in the Zifu period now, and the soul has not changed shape, but is still nurtured in the Zifu. At this moment, the soul is out of the body, and it doesn't take a moment or 3 to disappear. For a cultivator, going out of one's body before the nascent soul is no different from courting death. Even at the nascent soul stage, the nascent soul cannot be exposed to the physical body for a long time. If you want to travel between the heavens and the earth for a long time, you must reach the primordial spirit stage. Therefore, Yuan Shen Daojun is also called the out-of-body period in some practice books. Qin Daoxian didn't dare to look at Xiaofan again, and turned to the third treasure, which was also the last one. Chapter 297. This is. Qin Daoxian looked at the third treasure and his eyes narrowed. The third treasure, the shape is a picture. This picture is full of stars. It is really beautiful. However, Qin Daoxian felt an incomparably familiar aura on this map, as if there was something in the dark that connected him to this star map. The Taoist in white saw Qin Daoxian's hesitation, but he didn't say a word, letting him choose by himself. Qin Daoxian glanced at the white-clothed Taoist, knowing that he could not get any hints from the other party, so he pointed his finger at the third treasure, which was the star map. "Senior, I choose this treasure." The Taoist man in white nodded. This picture is called the Star Sword Dao picture, which is copied from a treasure that directly points to the essence of the Dao. He paused and glanced at Qin Daoxian strangely. "You chose this treasure, probably because you think this picture feels the most intimate to you, right?" Hearing this, Qin Daoxian was shocked. Although his heart was shocked, the expression on his face did not change at all, and he said calmly, "This is the first time this junior has seen this picture. Why does the senior think that I will feel the most kind to it?" The Taoist man in white smiled slightly and all pointed out, "Because you have practiced the most basic method of refining gods in my sect, Sea of Divine Light." Sea of Divine Light? Qin Daoxian was stunned. "Isn't it, Ding Soul Divine Light?" The Taoist man in white looked at him with a smile and did not explain. Qin Daoxian frowned, and he carefully recalled the origin of this Ding Soul Divine Light. Qin Daoxian's ability to obtain the divine power of soul mindfulness was entirely thanks to the help of his knowledge of the golden scriptures in the sea. Speaking of which, this is the second time he has seen the golden scriptures imparting knowledge of exercises to him. The golden scriptures taught him the first magic method, which was naturally the Hongmeng Enlightenment Classic, that Qin Daoxian relied on. For Qin Daoxian, this practice method is simply the biggest reliance on his practice so far. It can be said that more than 90% of his current achievements are due to this practice. The second cultivation method is Spirit of Divine Light, which is also called Sea of Divine Light by Taoist white clothes. But compared with Hongmeng Enlightenment Classic, Sea of Divine Light is too mediocre. Although it can theoretically expand the sea of consciousness of practitioners infinitely, the growth of the Sea of Light does not happen overnight, and requires the accumulation of people who practice this method over time. Moreover, although there is no upper limit to the expansion of Sea of Divine Light in theory, after Qin Daoxian practiced, he found that the cultivation of monks would restrict the expansion of the Sea of Divine Light. For example, Qin Daoxian is currently in the Zifu period. Normally, the sea of knowledge of the Zifu cultivator is about 100 miles in diameter. And Qin Daoxian's current sea of consciousness has reached a terrifying diameter of more than 700 miles. The greatest credit for this is due to the expansion of the Sea of Divine Light and the expansion of the Sea of Consciousness. But as the Sea of Divine Light continued to expand, Qin Daoxian found that its expansion rate was slowing down. When he first broke through the Purple Palace period, his Sea of Consciousness or the Sea of Divine Light was only 500 miles in diameter. After practicing for nearly a year, the Sea of Consciousness expanded to a diameter of 700 miles. After the Sea of Sacred Light expanded to a diameter of 700 miles, although Qin Daoxian continued to practice hard every day, the speed of progress was extremely slow. At this speed, if Qin Daoxian wants to expand the diameter of the Sea of Divine Light to a distance of 1,000 miles that is comparable to the Sea of Knowledge of the Golden Pill Cultivator, I am afraid that it will take more than 100 years of hard work. As for the expansion of 2,000 miles in diameter or even wider, I don't know how long it will take. Qin Daoxian felt that with his cultivation, even if his lifespan was exhausted, he might not necessarily be able to expand to a diameter of 2,000 miles. Because of the expansion of the Sea of God's Light, it will be more difficult as it goes on. Therefore, even though the Sea of Divine Light is a powerful method of refining the gods, and once activated, it can temporarily hold the spirits of others. But compared with the Hongmeng Enlightenment Classic, given to him by the Golden Scriptures, the two are really far apart. In other words, the difference between Haoyue and Yinghua. It stands to reason that with the urine quality of Golden Scriptures, if Sea of Divine Light is really so unbearable, he knows the Golden Scriptures in the sea and will never take the initiative to teach it to Qin Daoxian. That is to say. Qin Daoxian looked at the star map in front of him. The real role of the Sea of Light is not just to expand the sea of consciousness and inspire a beam of light that can fix one's soul. Thinking about it carefully, he obtained the cultivation method of Sea of Divine Light from the hands of Jianghu through the Golden Scriptures. Later, he learned from the memory fragments of the fallen immortal that the Sea of Divine Light was a method created by the other party. But looking at it now, it is clear that the fallen immortal lied. Shenjue Jinren may not know as much about the Sea of Divine Light as Qin Daoxian, and his memory has no reference value. And why did the fallen immortal lie? It is clear that this practice method was not created by him, but it is said that he created it, and he is not stingy to inherit this practice method. Unless this practice is not complete. Suddenly, Qin Daoxian felt a lot of things that could not be explained and instantly solved it. This cultivation technique. Shouldn't it be the basic cultivation technique for which major force in the upper realm selects disciples? Thinking of this, Qin Daoxian's heart thumped. He looked at the star map in front of him and suddenly became eager. For a long time, although Qin Daoxian has the Hongmeng Enlightenment Classic by his side. However, the Qigong method he practiced himself is only the Qinyuan Sword Classic of Qinyuan Jianzong. It cannot be said that the Qinyuan Sword Sutra is not good. After all, this is a method of qi refining and cultivation that directly points to the true immortals of Mahayana. But compared with Qin Daoxian's Hongmeng Enlightenment Classic, this practice is too inferior. But soon Qin Daoxian thought again. Sea of Divine Light is a method of refining God. Even if it is a complete Sea of Divine Light, will it involve the method of refining qi? Thinking of this, Qin Daoxian became a little nervous again. Now he is like a poor man standing in front of Baoshan, imagining what treasures are in Baoshan. As everyone knows, if you want to get the treasure in Baoshan, you have to open the door of the treasure first. In a trance, the voice of the white-robed Taoist awakened Qin Daoxian. Are you sure you want to choose this treasure? Qin Daoxian came back to his senses, nodded and said, Senior, I'm sure. Good. The Taoist man in white nodded, then waved his hand gently, and the small tower and the small banner in front of him disappeared suddenly, leaving only a star map. Go. The Taoist man in white snorted softly, and saw that the star map turned into a light spot, and drilled directly into Qin Daoxian's Dantian Qi Si. Qin Daoxian was taken aback. He first touched his Dantian, thinking that he is now a conscious body. This is the consciousness space, how could something get into his Dantian again? However, Qin Daoxian did not realize that, in reality, in the sky above his Dantian Qi Si, a picture scroll slowly unfolded. Soon this picture scroll covered the entire sky above the Dantian Qi Si. In the end, this blank picture directly took in two stars, one large and one small, above Dantian, and these two stars were transformed by Qin Daoxian's Space Sword Intent and Siyu Sword Intent. In the trial space, the Taoist in white looked at Qin Daoxian, who was checking his Dantian, and said, Since you have chosen the treasure, let's go to the Tongtian Tower. I hope you can enter this vein. For countless years, in the endless immortal domain, the Taoist man in white has seen too many geniuses. In his image, Qin Daoxian's talent is not even middle class. He had seen someone who became an immortal in one day, and even someone who was born a golden immortal. Compared with the existence of these incomparably talented monsters, Qin Daoxian, a seeker who has risen little by little from a mortal, is really not much different from an ant. Hearing the words of the Taoist in white clothes, Qin Daoxian didn't bother to look at it anymore. Watching Qin Daoxian slowly walk into the tower gate, the Taoist man in white murmured, Hopefully you can worship at the entrance. In the empty and silent trial space, his voice was barely audible. Step into the first floor of the Babel Tower. The scene in front of Qin Daoxian changed. Shaking his dizzy head, Qin Daoxian found that there was a mountain forest in front of him. It's just that Fang Tiandi has an extremely terrifying pressure on him. Qin Daoxian found that even the mana in his body became extremely stagnant when he was here. Qin Daoxian tried to release his mana, but he was horrified to find that Fang Tiandi was too restrictive on him, and he couldn't even release his mana. Qin Daoxian's heart sank and he once again released his common sense. Consciousness can stick out of the body, but it can only extend to 7 meters outside the body. Yes, 7 meters, definitely less than 8 meters. You must know that in the outside world, Qin Daoxian can extend his consciousness more than 700 miles outside the body. What kind of perverted world is this? Qin Daoxian was stunned. Just when he felt extremely uncomfortable, there was a strange shouting and screaming in his ears. Your Majesty asked me to patrol the mountains, oh hoo hoo, after patrolling the Nanshan and the North Mountain, oh hoo hoo. The sharp and piercing voice made Qin Daoxuan's scalp tingle. Danger. Qin Daoxuan's heart was full of alarms, and he immediately wanted to display the state of 3 heads and 6 arms. It is a pity that the 3 heads and 6 arms that can be easily displayed in the outside world can be transformed into a Dharma image with a height of 10 feet. At this moment, even the 3 heads and 6 arms of normal height cannot be displayed. Qin Daoxian couldn't care about this. He hurriedly called out Feishua's sword. Fortunately, his natal flying sword can be used. Qin Daoxian held the flying snow sword in one hand and looked at the monster in front of him intently. The monster in front of him has not yet transformed. Although it is a human body, its head does look like a strange beast. Based on the experience of the outside world, the untransformed monsters are not as powerful as the nascent soul monks of the human race. With the strength of Qin Daoxian, they are not afraid of the other party at all. However, Qin Daoxian felt a fatal threat on the other side, and even the golden scriptures that had been calm all shook rarely. Who are you? Qin Daoxuan's eyes narrowed slightly. The little demon in front of him did not answer, but tilted his head and said, Little Taoist priest, who are you? Saying that, he waved his hand at will. Forget it, no matter who you are, grab it back and eat it first. Seeing how tender and white you are, it must be delicious. Saying that, the monster actually drooled out of its mouth. Qin Daoxian couldn't resist the whim of the crazy warning, and he raised his sword and stabbed the monster. Although he was suppressed by this world, Qin Daoxuan's speed was still very fast. From the outsider's point of view, only a phantom flashed away. But in the eyes of this monster, Qin Daoxuan's speed was surprisingly slow, and he saw that it gently fiddled with Qin Daoxuan's flying snow sword with the iron stick in his hand, and then struck Qin Daoxuan's head with the stick. Qin Daoxian only felt the darkness in front of him and completely lost consciousness. When Qin Daoxian regained consciousness again, he was already outside the Tongtian Tower. The Taoist in white is now in front of him, looking at Qin Daoxian, who is breathing heavily. The Taoist in white chuckles. How do you feel? Qin Daoxian gasped for a few breaths and said unwillingly, The world in the Tongtian Tower has suppressed me too much, and I can't even exert 1% of my strength. Hearing this, the white-robed Taoist shook his head and said, That world suppresses all living beings the same. You can't beat the opponent in that world, and you are also not an opponent when you come here. Hearing this, Qin Daoxian frowned. Although he didn't want to admit it, the gap between his strength and the little mountain patrolling demon was too great. The other party just smashed his head with a light stick. Qin Daoxian didn't even see how the other party shot. For a long time, Qin Daoxian was almost in a crushing position against the enemy, and this was the first time he was abused without the ability to fight back. More importantly, the feeling of dying inside the Babel is all too real. Although the illusion of the Linglong Pagoda of the 9 ruins of the family can also simulate a similar illusion, it is definitely not so real. With golden scriptures, Qin Daoxuan's immunity to illusions is quite high. But in the Tongtian Tower he really felt the threat of death, otherwise he would not be crazy about the golden scriptures in the sea. Could it be that the world in the Tongtian Tower is real? Qin Daoxian was startled by his own thoughts, but he immediately denied himself. But, how is this possible? I am a conscious body entering it, how can I have a real body? Shaking his head, Qin Daoxian no longer thought about it. This trip to the Tower of Babel was indeed a big blow to him. After entering, the head was smashed with only one move. Senior, the monster's strength is too strong. With my current strength, I can't break through the first floor of the Tongtian Tower. The Taoist man in white nodded. It's normal, that's not what your cultivation base should be for. Qin Daoxian. For the first time he discovered that this icy white-clothed Taoist could still make jokes. And it's such a vulgar joke. Maybe this one has been in the inheritance trial space for too long, and he really felt bored. The Taoist in white seemed to see what Qin Daoxian was thinking, and he waved his hand. Go, take a good look at the kendo map of the stars you chose. Senior? Qin Daoxian wanted to speak again, but suddenly woke up suddenly. He looked at the dark passage of the real demon world not far away, and it turned out that he had returned to his body with consciousness. On the side, the black robe avatar was protecting the law for him, while Luoli was sitting cross-legged, her pretty face and brows furrowed. Qin Daoxian knew that she must be comprehending the basic sword techniques given by the white-clothed Taoist, just like him. However, Luoli did not have the help of the Hongmeng Enlightenment Classic. With only 3 pieces of Taoist Enlightenment tea leaves, she did not know whether she could pass the first assessment of the Taoist in white and obtain the qualification for the trial. Immediately, Qin Daoxian focused his attention on Dantian Qi Si. At this time he finally discovered the changes in his Dantian. Before he could marvel, A vast flow of information directly drowned his consciousness. Chapter 298. Qinlang. Qinlang. In a trance, an anxious call came from Qin Daoxuan's ear. A long time. Qin Daoxuan's consciousness gradually woke up. The blurred vision gradually became clear, and a few feet away from his face, a beautiful face came into Qin Daoxuan's eyes. It's just that this beautiful face is full of worry and anxiety. Seeing Luo Li's sobbing appearance, Qin Daoxian raised his hand, rubbed his painful temple and comforted, "Don't worry, I'm fine." Seeing that Qin Daoxian was conscious, Luo Li suddenly burst into laughter. She touched Qin Daoxuan's forehead and his chest again with her white and tender hand and said eagerly, "You are a cultivator of Zifu with a strong sense of consciousness, how could you pass out of a coma?" Qin Daoxian thought for a while, "Maybe, it's this exercise that I just acquired, it's a bit complicated." Gong method. Qin Daoxian didn't explain too much and instead asked, "How is it, have you qualified for the trial?" As he spoke, there was a look of anticipation in his eyes. If Luo Li couldn't get the qualification for the trial even with 3 pieces of Enlightenment tea, even if he used the preaching function to open up Luo Li, it would be difficult. After all, preaching to outsiders takes 10 days to improve one's comprehension within 1 stick of incense. And 3 pieces of Enlightenment tea leaves can improve the cultivator's comprehension for an hour and a half. Even if the effect of Enlightenment tea to improve understanding may not be as good as that of preaching, it is better than time. Obtaining the qualification for inheritance trials requires long-term understanding, not a short-lived epiphany. Because the Taoist in white taught the sword art, one after another with a long time interval in between. Luo Li looked at Qin Daoxuan's concerned eyes, her rosy mouth pursed slightly, and her pretty face had a hint of pride and said, "Look." I saw Luo Li's fair eyebrows, a golden pattern appeared, which is the symbol of Wan Xinghai's inheritance testers. Looking at Luo Li's small expression begging for praise, Qin Daoxian couldn't help but scratched her nose with his hand, and said indulgently, "My lady is the most capable, she did a great job." It was the first time that Luo Li heard the name Nyangzi in Qin Daoxuan's ears. For a while she felt extremely sweet in her heart. This feeling was 1,000 times happier than when she obtained the Wan Xinghai inheritance trial qualification. Seeing Luo Li's delightful appearance, Qin Daoxian felt happy from the bottom of his heart. Luo Li's current cultivation is the same as his, reaching the 9th floor of the Purple Mansion. Normally, the 9th floor cultivator of the Purple Mansion should consider the matter of forming a pill. But before Luo Li's Tao realm, even the first invisible realm has not been reached. At this moment, Luo Li will fail 100%. Although with the help of Qin Daoxuan's preaching, Luo Li spent dozens or hundreds of years, and will definitely reach the 3rd stage of star transformation. But after tens of hundreds of years, what realm should Qin Daoxian reach? You must know that Qin Daoxian has only been practicing for less than 30 years. It took 100 years to form a pill, which may be a dream for other cultivators of Zifu. But for Qin Daoxian it was simply unacceptable. Therefore Qin Daoxian wanted to find another shortcut for Luo Li. This shortcut is the inheritance trial of Wan Xinghai. For others, Wan Xinghai's inheritance trial requires too much comprehension. However, Qin Daoxian has the preaching function of the Hongmeng Enlightenment scripture, and there are treasures such as Enlightenment tea leaves. Compared with other inheritance trials, Luo Li has a much greater advantage. Sure enough, as expected by Qin Daoxian, Luo Li successfully obtained the inheritance trial qualification. However, Qin Daoxian knew that the qualifications for inheritance trials at the beginning were only the lowest level, with only a few trials. Once you fail to pass the trial assessment within the specified number of trials, you will be withdrawn from the trial qualification. Now Luo Li's trial qualification is this one. After listening to Qin Daoxuan's explanation, Luo Li nodded quickly. "It seems so. This divine pattern between my eyebrows tells me that I only have the qualifications for 2 trials." Twice. Qin Daoxian was quite surprised. "You actually qualified for 2 trials in the first trial?" This time Qin Daoxian was really shocked by Luo Li. When he participated in the inheritance trial here for the first time, he was only qualified for 2 trials. Qin Daoxian was finally able to obtain the qualification for infinite inheritance trials, or because Jie Yuanzhu provided him with a large number of comprehension stars, which kept him in a state of epiphany. Could it be that this inheritance has different standards for different races? Qin Daoxian couldn't help thinking that Luo Li was a merman. Although she had human blood, she was no longer the same race as the human. "Qinlang, what's wrong?" "Fine." Qin Daoxian smiled and said, You can qualify for 2 trials for the first time. Madam, you are much more powerful than I imagined. Seeing Qin Daoxuan's sincere compliments, Luo Li lowered her head and said awkwardly, "How can they be as powerful as you said?" Seeing Luo Li's shy appearance, Qin Daoxian in a good mood, hugged her into his arms, kissed her tender and pretty face and said firmly, "Of course, the lady is so powerful, you will accompany her in the future. Follow me, become immortal together, and be that immortal companion." Hearing this, Luo Li, who was lying in Qin Daoxuan's arms, raised her head, looked at Qin Daoxuan's side face and murmured, "Becoming an immortal, can we really become immortals? There have been no Mahayana true immortals in this world for hundreds of thousands of years." Qin Daoxian lowered his head, looked at the beautiful woman in his arms, then raised his head again, looked at the starry sky above his head and said to himself, "Yes, definitely." Feeling Qin Daoxuan's unshakable belief, Luo Li buried her little head deeply in his arms. At this moment she felt that even if she died, she would have no regrets in her life. Qin Daoxian didn't know what was in Luo Li's heart, and his mood at the moment was unprecedentedly high. Although he supported the Qin family cultivator, in the eyes of the family cultivator, Qin Daoxian was the patriarch and the omnipotent god. But Qin Daoxian knew how weak the background was, whether it was the Qin family or himself. Not to mention that compared with the big sects like Qin Yuan Jianzong, even compared with the Yuanian clan that dominates one state, the Qin family is also too far away. Can such a family really give birth to a Mahayana true immortal? Even Qin Daoxian owns the treasure of golden scriptures. But if this world can no longer give birth to a Mahayana true immortal, what should he do? The limits of the world are the most deadly. This is what Qin Daoxian realized on the first floor of Tongtian Tower. In this world, his spiritual consciousness can be extended for 700 miles at will, but on the first floor of the Tongtian Tower, he can only extend his spiritual consciousness to 7 meters outside the body, and he cannot even release his mana. A dignified cultivator from the Purple House, turned into a martial arts master. Although Qin Daoxian hadn't tried it, he doubted whether he could fly with Yu Jian in the world on the first floor of Tongtian Tower. The reason why Qin Daoxian is high now is because of the inheritance of Wan Xinghai. Through the various inheritance trials, Qin Daoxian can now be 100% sure that this inheritance trial is the selection of disciples by a top-level force in the upper realm. Perhaps. For this top-level force, such inheritance trials are all over the heavens and the world. Anyway, it's not just the world where Qin Daoxian is now. Especially when he got the treasure of the Star Kendo map, he became more and more sure of this. Strictly speaking, the Xingqian Kendo map is a special pure yang fairy weapon. It is a pure yang fairy artifact imitated by copying a treasure that points directly to the avenue. Of course, compared to the normal pure yang immortal artifact, the Xingqian Kendo map is more like a growing pure yang immortal artifact. Although its power is far less than that of ordinary pure yang fairy weapons, this treasure has infinite possibilities. Through the information from the Star's Kendo map, Qin Daoxian learned that if this map was improved to the extreme, he would have the qualification to use that treasure. As for the name of the treasure, it was not disclosed in the inheritance of Xingqian Kendo 2. He only knew that it was a treasure possessed by this top power. Forget it, the treasure thing is still too far away from me. I am afraid that even if I become a god, I am not qualified to access this information. Qin Daoxian shook his head. He knew how terrifying the power to be able to give away a pure yang immortal artifact casually. After all, Qin Daoxian is not yet a disciple of this top power. Moreover, according to Taoist white clothes, more than 900 people in this world have reached the step of Qin Daoxian. For hundreds of thousands of years, it is impossible for all of these 900 testers to survive in this world. But even so, it means that the growth of pure yang immortal artifacts similar to the Star Kendo map, this top power has given away more than 900 pieces. In the whole world, how many pure yang immortal artifacts should this force give away? And paying such a big price, just to choose a disciple. Every time Qin Daoxian thought about this, his heart couldn't stop trembling. What kind of power is this? How much more pure yang immortal artifact than my Qin family spirit stone? Tsk. Qin Lang, what did you say? Qin Daoxian smiled and said, "Nothing." Luo Li didn't care, she seemed to think of something again and hurriedly offered her treasure. "By the way, I forgot to tell you, I stepped into the first level of the Dao realm and realized the sword intent." "Real?" Qin Daoxian looked surprised. "What is the sword intent?" "It's the sword of water. Water moves sword intent." Qin Daoxian thought that he had expended so much energy and spent so much energy to realize the Siyu sword intent. And the Siyu sword intent is only a branch of the water movement sword intent. Qin Daoxian sighed. There is an inheritance and no inheritance, the difference is too big. Yes, Luo Li was deeply touched by this point. Compared with the disciples of major forces, apart from the gap in cultivation resources such as spiritual stones and veins, there is no inheritance at all. Qin Daoxian nodded. There are many loose cultivators in the Xiaoxian world, and they have stumbled onto the road of cultivation only by relying on the remnants of an ordinary Qigong method. Speaking of which, Wan Xinghai's scattered cultivators were lucky, at least the Qianyuan sword sect gave them a glimmer of hope. Just for this glimmer of hope, how many loose cultivators have left their lives in Izumo? But if these loose cultivators were given another chance, they would still choose this way. Because the realm of immortality is so cruel, either desperately or wait a little bit for the end of life. In order to give Wan Xinghai a chance for countless scattered cultivators, the Qianyuan sword sect master has paid a huge price for this. At that time, Qin Daoxuan's status was low, and he couldn't see this clearly. As the Qin family's power became stronger and stronger, his status became higher and higher, and he felt more and more admiration for the sect master of Qianyuan sword sect. After all, if he dared to take the risk of the world and win a chance for countless scattered cultivators, he was the only one in the entire Wangxinghai. Even in the entire immortal cultivation world, there is only one person. The two stayed for a while. Qin Daoxian lifted Luo Li's soft body and said, "Let's digest what we have gained in the inheritance first. Now is not the time for us to enjoy it." Hearing this, Luo Li was shocked. She knew the meaning of Qin Daoxuan's words. Not only Qin Daoxuan's big goal of becoming an immortal, it can be a few years as fast as it can be as slow as 10 years. Qianyuan Jianzong must take back Zenangwen, and Sangzhou cultivator recovered Zenangwen. Main force. In order to make this trip absolutely safe, Qin Daoxian must break through to the golden core stage before that. Thinking of this, Luo Li didn't care about Wen Xian. She stood up quickly and said, "Qin Lang, you can practice with peace of mind and the slave family will protect you." Qin Daoxian shook his head and said with a smile, "There is no need to protect the law for me, there is him." He tilted his head and glanced at the black-robed clone sitting not far away like a stone. "Ma'am, you can practice with peace of mind. You have just realized the sword intent of water movement, so you should consolidate it well." Luo Li glanced at the black-robed clone and nodded, "Okay, I'll listen to your husband." This was the first time she called Mrs. Qin Daoxian, and her ears turned red. Qin Daoxuan's heart swayed violently when he saw her beautiful and delicious look. Then he stopped his impulse, nodded and continued to retreat. Qin Daoxian retreated, of course, for the treasure of the Xingqiang Kendo map. Qin Daoxian was in a coma just now because too much information came from the Xingqiang Kendo map at one time, so that the sea of knowledge could not bear it, and he fainted directly. Of course, it is impossible to be dangerous. After all, Qin Daoxuan's sea of consciousness has golden scriptures, and he is still very confident in this uncle in the sea of consciousness. With a little bit of sorting out the information in the sea of knowledge, Qin Daoxian finally knew what kind of treasure the Xingqiang Kendo map was. According to his own understanding, the Xingqiang Kendo map is a map of raising swords. This picture pays attention to the picture raising the sword, and the sword raising the picture so that the two enhance each other to the extreme. First of all, it is the picture to raise the sword. The sword here refers not only to the ordinary fairy sword, but also to the sword intent. That's right, it was the space sword intent and the Siu sword intent that were included in the Stars Kendo map. This picture can not only cultivate the immortal sword in the real sense, but also integrate the sword intent into the immortal sword, and directly enhance the sword intent by cultivating the immortal sword. Doesn't this mean that in the future I won't even have to comprehend the Tao, and I can directly cultivate the immortal sword through this picture? Qin Daoxian is a sword cultivator, and the realm of Kendo is the realm of the Tao. And the realm of Kendo from the first invisible realm, the second visible realm, the third realm of star transformation to the fifth realm of law and the sixth realm of world. It refers to the change of sword intent. Only in the realm of the fourth realm, the sword intent itself has not changed much. As he continued to comprehend, Qin Daoxian finally understood what this picture of raising a sword meant. To put it simply, the practitioner only needs to put a fairy sword and the corresponding sword intent into the Stars Kendo diagram, and then this diagram will integrate the invisible sword intent with the real fairy sword. In the future, if you improve the grade of the fairy sword, you will be able to improve the level of sword intent. Can you still practice like this? Qin Daoxian was stunned. Originally, he thought that Hongming Enlightenment Daojing was enough to improve his understanding, but he turned out to be an even more perverted one. After realizing this, Qin Daoxian couldn't wait to call out the two Bing immortal swords in Z Mansion. Immediately afterwards he called out the stars kendo map in his dantian. As the stars kendo map slowly unfolded, Qin Daoxian saw the two sword intents he understood outside the body for the first time, two stars, one big and one small, twinkling on the kendo map. Qin Daoxian couldn't care less, and directly threw Fei Xue and Qingying swords into the picture. As the Xingqian kendo map swallowed the two swords, the two stars in the picture also slowly swam towards the Fei Xue and Qingying swords. I saw that the space sword intent was integrated into the Qingying sword, and the Siyu sword intent was integrated into the Fei Xue sword. At the moment when the two sword intents merged into the two flying swords, as the owner of the flying swords, Qin Daoxian clearly sensed that his sense of the two flying swords disappeared. At this moment, Fei Xue and Qingying's two immortal swords turned into a special existence that had both form and no form. Sword intent is immortal sword is sword intent, so it is. Qin Daoxian muttered. But immediately, Qin Daoxian was shocked and he thought of a serious question. Is the level of sword intent can be improved by raising the rank of the immortal sword? Then my Qin family must not go bankrupt? Chapter 299. Inheritance Trial Space. The Taoist in white looked at Qin Daoxian, who had only been offline for less than a day, and frowned. Why are you here again? I said, with your current cultivation level, you are still far from reaching Tongtian Tower. Even if it is the first floor of Tongtian Tower, you must at least have nascent soul cultivation to try it out. Qin Daoxian shook his head, reporting to the seniors the juniors are not oversight. They came to break through the Sky Tower, but the juniors are just wondering. Doubtful. Exactly. Qin Daoxian took a deep breath. The younger generation has always believed that there is no shortcut to comprehend the laws of the Tao. But today this star map obtained by the younger generation makes the younger generation a little confused. If the rank of the immortal sword can be improved, the sword intent and the Tao level can be improved. What is the meaning of the younger generation and thousands of monks, who are struggling to understand the Tao and seek the Tao? You are here for this? The white-robed Taoist chuckled. Why do you think that your penance must be meaningful? Your heels can be described as extremely poor, you are just a mere mortal, you have worked hard for 100 and 1,000 years to realize the Tao, and you are not even as good as a monk with a slightly better heel. What's more, you are born to be the golden immortal fruit rank. What is the significance of your efforts compared with such existences? Qin Daoxian frowned deeply. As far as you are concerned, the Xingqian Kendo map is just a shortcut for you. In the past, you had to study hard to improve the realm of the Tao. Now you can not only improve the realm of the Tao through enlightenment, but also improve the realm of the Tao through treasure refining. It seems that the road is much smoother, but compared with those living beings with extraordinary feet who are born with innate spiritual treasures, you are not. What? Boy, you should recognize yourself clearly, don't think highly of yourself and don't look down on yourself. These words, like thunder, exploded in Qin Daoxian's heart. I have to say that, although Qin Daoxian did not show it on his face, he always felt that he was the son of luck and the pride of heaven. Crossing, golden scripture, gold finger. All of this shows that he is the protagonist of the novel. But at the moment when he got the stars kendo map, Qin Daoxian felt that he was hit. He can use the Hongmeng Enlightenment Sutra to improve his comprehension to quickly comprehend the Tao, and other monks can also use treasures like the Star Sword Tao map to improve the realm of the Tao while refining treasures. It was hard for Qin Daoxian to judge which of the two was higher or lower. But obviously, this method is as incredible as the Hongmeng Enlightenment Classic. What is even more terrifying is that the faction to which the Taoist in white belongs can actually replicate this method in batches. After a long time, Qin Daoxian took a step back, bowed deeply to the Taoist man in white, and said sincerely, "Junior, please be taught." Go. The Taoist man in white waved his hand lightly. Watching Qin Daoxian disappear in front of him, a smile appeared on the face of the Taoist man in white, Gujing Bubo. Consciousness returned to his body again. Qin Daoxian felt the rapidly transforming sword intent, stood up and said, "Luoli, I want to retreat." Okay. After pondering for a moment, Qin Daoxian continued, "Before the retreat, do something for me." Luoli nodded quickly. "Qin Lang, you are instructed." Qin Daoxian took out a token from the storage bag that symbolized the identity of the patriarch of the Qin family, handed it to Luoli and said, "Take this token and go to the Qin family to transfer enough spirit stones to transfer the spirit of the magic ape mountain. The pulse is promoted to the 4th rank." What? Luoli was stunned when she heard this. You must know that the spiritual veins of Jianghu Island are only 3rd-order spiritual veins now. The hundreds of Zifu cultivators newly born in the Qin family rely on the essence of vitality for promotion. Otherwise, relying on the spiritual veins, the Qin family does not know when so many Zifu cultivators will be born. But Qin Daoxian now has no excess vitality essence in his hand, and even if he has it, it is useless. After the vitality essence is taken out, it will dissipate within a few months at most. Therefore, to break through the golden core, he must rely on the fourth-order spiritual veins. The spirit vein rank of Demon Ape Mountain is only third rank, which is not enough to support Qin Daoxian to break through the golden pill. Luoli is also a decisive person. She knows that this matter is related to Qin Daoxian's path, and she does not dare to neglect. After a brief surprise, she immediately nodded, "Qin Lang, don't worry, leave this matter to me." Watching Luoli leave, Qin Daoxian ordered the black robe to go to the cave next door to retreat, and he also walked to the cave he opened. Inside the cave, as soon as Qin Daoxian sat down, his body was shocked, and he suddenly focused his attention on the Star Sword Dao map in his Dantian. He found that the Space Sword intent on the Kendo map has been promoted to the third high level. So fast, Qin Daoxian muttered. His Space Sword intent and Siu Sword intent were originally only the third middle level. Under the cultivation of the Stars Kendo diagram, his two sword intents improved rapidly, and soon broke through to the third high level. My Flying Snow Sword and Qingying Sword are fourth-rank top-grade swords, so I will soon be able to step into the realm of the Dao realm. Qin Daoxian was a little hard to adapt to, feeling the way to improve the realm of the Dao faster than the opening of the Hongmeng Enlightenment Book of Dao. There are more than 900 people in this world who have obtained this inheritance. It seems that the water in this world is deeper than I imagined. Qin Daoxian secretly guessed. Even if hundreds of thousands of years have passed and a large number of people have died, the ones who are alive must be the top existences in this world. Although the Qinyuan sword sect became the master of Wan Xinghai, the inheritance of Wan Xinghai became well known, but in the past few thousand years, very few have reached the step of Qin Daoxian. It is the geniuses who have accumulated hundreds of thousands of years who can really reach Qin Daoxian's point. The reason is very simple. In the early years, the inheritance of Wan Xinghai was not exposed, and those who could obtain the qualifications for the trial were all true geniuses. After Qinyuan Jianzong entered Wan Xinghai, although the inheritance here was exposed, the people who came to accept this inheritance trial were too low level. For example, Luoli. Normally, Luoli is impossible to obtain the qualification for the trial. But she just obtained the qualification for the trial by virtue of the treasure of enlightenment tea and tea leaves. The same goes for the arrogance of other forces in Wan Xinghai, such as Yi Wudao, Jiang Chenai and others. But using this tricky method to obtain the qualification for the trial is destined to not go far. After all, the treasures that can temporarily increase comprehension are very precious. Even if it is a big power, it is impossible for the disciples in the clan to use it all the time. This is also the reason why Yi Wudao and Jiang Chenai swayed around with the divine runes of the inheritance trials, but they dared not accept the inheritance trials again. Because they know that with their talent, once they are tested again, they are likely to be eliminated. Only by reaching the step of Qin Daoxian can he be regarded as the seed player inherited here. There are more than 900 people in this world. No, there shouldn't be 900 people. Qin Daoxian shook his head. I don't know how many seeded players I have in Wan Xinghai. In fact, as long as the other party is not exposed, no one knows who got one of these three treasures in Wan Xinghai. Just when Qin Daoxian sighed, Qin Daoxian's body shook again. Dao territory. This is a breakthrough? Qin Daoxian felt a little dumbfounded. I knew earlier, should I spend all my family property and buy a fifth-order fairy sword? In this way, wouldn't my Dao realm quickly reach the law realm? Of course, Qin Daoxian regretted less than a moment. The fifth-order fairy sword is a treasure that Yuan Yingjinjuan is qualified to hold. Even if the Qin family had enough spirit stones, unless they used the favor of the Hall Master of Jinhai Palace, they would never be able to buy this kind of treasure. 4 treasures suitable for Yuanying Jinjuan. Generally, Yuanying cultivators will not use spirit stones to trade directly, but use the power of good fortune as a general equivalent. Only the treasures that true monarch nascent soul cannot use will they trade with spirit stones. If you want to use spirit stones to buy the 5th order immortal sword used by Yuanying Jinjuan, unless you encounter a situation where Yuanying Jinjuan is very urgent and needs a lot of spirit stones. This situation is unpredictable. Now the Xingqiang Kendo map is integrated into the Tubong 4th Order high-grade immortal sword. In theory, my Dao realm can be directly promoted to the high level of Daoyu realm. This Dao realm surpasses Fairy Qi Yao. Qin Daoxian thought for a while. Now that I have broken through the golden core stage, I just need to make up for the lack of body refinement. As long as the body refining cultivation base breaks through to the realm of rebirth from a broken skull, you can form a pill. Qin Daoxian unfolded his own Dao domain while combing. In just a split second, Qin Daoxuan's Dao territory expanded for a radius of 700 miles. The next moment, 2 stars, one big and one small, were suppressed in the Dao domain, which were the 2 sword intents that Qin Daoxian understood. When I saw Fairy Qi Yao cast the time domain, I didn't see her time sword intent. Qin Daoxian thought about it for a while and he felt blessed. 2 stars, one big and one small, disappeared in the Taoist realm in an instant, and returned to the kendo map of the stars in Dantian. I see, Qin Daoxian nodded. Without the filling of sword intent, the power of Daoyu suddenly dropped a lot. Immediately he tried to call out the space sword intent, and the Daoyu power reached 80% of the heyday. With the addition of the Siyu sword intent, the Daoyu power was directly filled. This repressive force is even more powerful than Fairy Qi Yao's time domain. Qin Daoxian was not too surprised when he saw this. After all, Fairy Qi Yao's time Dao domain was only the first stage of Dao domain realm, which was comparable to him. But Fairy Qi Yao only comprehends one kind of sword intent. Naturally it is not as good as Qin Daoxian, who has comprehended 2 kinds of sword intent. Although the power of the Siyu sword intent is far less than that of the time sword intent, his space sword intent is not inferior at all. What if, call out the star kendo map? For some reason Qin Daoxuan's heartbeat accelerated, and he felt that the star sword Dao map seemed to match the Dao domain. Do it when you think of it. This time Qin Daoxian called out the Xingqian kendo map directly. Suddenly, a picture scroll spanning the heavens and the earth instantly unfolded on the bottom of the Wangxinghai Sea. Qin Daoxuan's Dao domain was completely covered by this picture. Demon Mountains. Luo Yuanshan, who was retreating and attacking the golden core, raised his head sharply, and a fear from the depths of his soul suddenly surged into his heart. It's Dao domain. Luo Yuanshan sat up in shock. I don't know who is the true monarch? I am Luo Yuanshan, the patriarch of the mermaid clan affiliated to the Chen family in Sangzhou. If I offend you, please ask Senior Haihan. Luo Yuanshan bowed and put his head under his arms in a submissive gesture. The other mermen were even more frightened by this heavenly threat. For the first time the stars kendo map appeared in the world, and Qin Daoxian could not control it perfectly, and only leaked a trace of power, which scared the entire merman clan. Qin Daoxian didn't have the heart to pay attention to the merman. He was now testing the power of this treasure wholeheartedly. Speaking of which, this is the real treasure in the hands of Qin Daoxian. Since it is a treasure at the bottom of the box, it would be funny if he couldn't figure out his power and the time he could use. If it is said that the ultimate power of Qin Daoxuan's Dao domain just now is 1, then after unfolding the Star Sword Dao map, the power instantly soared to more than 100. With the increase of the Star Sword Dao map, the power of the Dao domain has been enhanced by more than 100 times. In the same way Qin Daoxuan's mana was quickly drained. Breath. Qin Daoxian looked at the empty Dantian, which was drained of all mana in one breath, and his face was a little blue. Fortunately, his 4th order high-grade life spirit armor is opening the gate to release water, constantly instilling mana into his Dantian. However, the 4th grade good fortune White Lotus can only store more than 100 times the mana at most. If you use this star kendo map, you can only use more than 100 breaths. 132 breaths, about a little over 2 minutes. Seeing that after being drained, the spiritual light dissipated, and Qin Daoxuan's face paled. Losing the mana support, the star's kendo map instantly turned into a spot of light and got into his Dantian Qi Si. That feeling just now. Qin Daoxian clenched his fists, far more than Jindan Cultivator. Qin Daoxian has only seen Jinhai Hall's Hall Master take action a few times, but he feels that the power of the star's kendo chart just erupted is no less than the power of Jinhai Hall's Hall Master's shot. Yawning clasp. Just now, the Xingqian kendo diagram burst out with power comparable to the true monarch Yuaning. Although it was only a short 2 minutes, it was enough for him to sweep all Jindan cultivators. Whole card. This is his real trump card. In the past, magical powers such as soul-setting divine light, 3 heads and 6 arms, etc., although his strength far surpassed that of a monk of the same level, he could only achieve the same level of dominance. When encountering high-level monks, it is not bad that he can match them. Don't look at Qin Daoxuan's defeat of Jiang Zui, the 7th elder of the Jiang family, but that was Jiang Zu's intention, and the opponent's ability was restrained by Qin Daoxian in all aspects. Otherwise, once Jianghu understood Qin Daoxuan's weakness, if the two fought again the outcome would be unpredictable. But now, even if Jianghu is 10 times stronger, Qin Daoxian can easily suppress the opponent. Stepping into the Dao domain realm, his strength has increased sharply, plus the Star Sword Dao map. At least within the 132 breaths of using the Star's Kendo chart, he is a genuine Yuan Ing Jinjuan. Inside the secret room. Although Qin Daoxuan's dantian was empty, his face was as pale as paper. But his eyes were very bright. Now, go all out to break through to the golden core stage. My Qin family has been dormant for long enough, it's time for a blockbuster. Thinking of this, Qin Daoxian was very motivated. He patted the storage bag on his waist lightly, and a large pile of blood marrow was piled up in front of him. These blood marrow were obtained by the true immortal origin realm. Although the blood marrow is not as obvious as the vitality essence to improve the Qi cultivation base, its help to the cultivator's body refining is more than half a star stronger than that of the blood crystal. Qin Daoxian estimated that with the pile of blood marrow in front of him, he would be able to improve his body training to the realm of rebirth from a broken skull. Chapter 300. Demon Mountains. Inside a cave house. A young man with a naked body. Next to the man, there was a pile of blood-colored stones the size of a hill. Compared with blood crystals, these blood-colored stones are not only darker in color, but also filled with a chaotic will that disturbs people's minds, as if countless mournful wailing gathered together. Kill. 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 Die. I want you to die. Qin Daoxuan's face was calm, and he merged the blood marrow into his body, and his heart was like a knife, destroying all the chaotic wills. I do not know how long it has been. Call? Qin Daoxian opened his eyes. It's the limit. Feeling the terrifying physical power, Qin Daoxian felt an indescribable sense of satisfaction in his heart. Compared with the mana of Zifu, the physical power brought by body training seemed more real. This kind of feeling that one fist can stab a hole in the sky is more real and powerful than the nihilistic power of mana. Is this the realm of rebirth from the broken skull? Such a terrifying power is actually only equivalent to the Qi refining cultivation in the Zizifu period. As Qin Daoxuan's soul revolved, he quickly grasped the skyrocketing power after the breakthrough of his body training. It seems that refining the gods can not only make the consciousness stronger, but also allow the monks to better control their own power. As a burst of enlightenment came to his mind, Qin Daoxian suddenly had a deeper understanding of body refining, Qi refining, and spiritual refining. With a breakthrough in his body training, Qin Daoxian stood up from the futon. As the body stood up, the futon that was sitting cross-legged directly turned into ashes. This. Looking at the futon that was affected by the breakthrough of the body refining cultivation base, Qin Daoxian shook his head. It seems that my control of the physical strength is not as perfect as I imagined. Although compared with Qi refining, Qin Daoxian's body refining is only equivalent to the first floor of Zifu, and he is still very immature. However, in an environment where body training is generally not taken seriously in this world, Qin Daoxuan's body training practice of rebirth from a broken skull in the Zifu period is already invaluable. Even the direct disciples of many major sects have the same Qi cultivation base, and body cultivation base is not as good as Qin Daoxian. The cultivation of the body has reached the realm of rebirth from the broken skull, the realm of the avenue has reached the high level of the realm, and the mana of the Zifu has also been tempered to the limit state, which can be broken through at any time. After 3 years of dormancy in the demonic ape mountain, Qin Daoxian has done his best to prepare for the formation of elixir. Thinking of this, he swept away his consciousness, felt the breath of the fourth-order spiritual veins in the demon monkey mountain, and nodded with satisfaction. Yes, it took 3 years to cultivate this spiritual vein and promote it to the fourth order. It seems that the cost of spiritual stones is more than 1 billion. A little bit of spiritual stone consumption, whether it is in the eyes of Qin Daoxian or the Qin family, is nothing at all. Now, with the industrialization process of Guanhai Xianqing, the benefits the Qin family reaps every year has skyrocketed several times or even dozens of times. Not to mention Cangzhou, Jingzhou and Taizhou next door to Cangzhou have all paid attention to the new Cangzhou clan of the Qin family. In the past few years, the 2 states in Yuanshan Xianqing have sent people to the Qin family to seek cooperation with the Qin family, but they were all rejected by Qin Dalian as the patriarch, ignoring the common things. But this matter cannot be dragged on forever. In addition to matters outside the state, the more important thing is the affairs within Cangzhou itself. Qinyuan Jianzong's expedition to Zhenangwan is imminent. As the main force in this battle, Sangzhou must select a commander-in-chief in the state. Originally, the commander-in-chief should be Zhou Mingho, the patriarch of the new Jindan family in Sangzhou. However, as the Qin family's development momentum has become more and more rapid in recent years, there are gradually different voices in Sangzhou. After all, everyone still remembers the scene of Qin Daoxian turning the tide in the true immortal origin realm. Although Qin Daoxian is not a Jindan real person in terms of strength, he is not necessarily weaker than Zhou Mingho, who was promoted to the Jindan stage. Anyone with discernment knows that Qin Daoxian's cultivation is not as good as Zhou Mingho, but his strength is obviously stronger. Coupled with the rapid development momentum of the Qin family, it is no wonder that everyone is swaying. It is easy to stand in line with the Zhou family now, but who can guarantee that the Qin family will come from behind and will not settle accounts in the autumn? With this idea in mind, there are naturally different voices within Sangzhou. To everyone's surprise, the Yang family, one of the three major families in Guang'an House, actually stood on the side of the Qin family. Although Yang Linyuan is average in strength, he is a scheming person and has always been famous. Countless people have speculated whether the Yang family knows something that everyone does not know. Just when the outside world was chaotic and noisy, Qin Daoxian's breakthrough had reached a critical period. Outside the cave, Luo Li stood not far from the cave where Qin Daoxian retreated and walked around anxiously. Beside her, a sturdy middle-aged merman comforted, "Don't worry." With the background of Daoxian, breaking through the golden elixir is not easy to catch. Although Luo Shiyuan didn't know what Qin Daoxian's Dao state had reached, he knew about Qin Daoxian's record. Qin Daoxian's reputation for being able to overwhelm the heroes in the true immortal origin realm has long been spread among the cultivators of the Zifu. At that time, the outside world speculated that Qinyuan Jianzong would definitely set Qin Daoxian in the top 3 of the Zifu Tianjiao list. The results were not as expected. After the true immortal origin realm, Qinyuan Jianzong redrawn the ranking of the Zifu Tianjiao list. Qin Daoxian ranked second, and Fairy Qiyao was the first. Fairy Qiyao's avenue has reached the 4th realm, which is indeed better than Qin Daoxian, who only had the 3rd realm at the time. But now, feeling the increasingly depressing atmosphere around him, Luo Shiyuan, who had tried to break through the golden core stage several times, immediately understood what was going on, and turned his head and shouted at Luo Li, "Liar, go back. Father, it's the golden core thunder tribulation." Luo Xiu looked dignified from afar. What? Hearing the golden core thunder tribulation, Luo Li's face was both surprised and worried. She was surprised by the success of AI Lang's formation, and worried that the Jindan Thunder Tribulation was so powerful that it would hurt AI Lang. Seeing his daughter's concern, Luo Shiyuan pulled Luo Li back and said, "You can rest assured, if he can't survive the Golden Core Thunder Tribulation, who else in this world can achieve Golden Core Cultivation?" Having said that, Luo Li should still be worried. As Luo Shiyuan judged, Qin Daoxian's formation of the pill was unprecedentedly smooth. His breakthrough, rather than a breakthrough, might as well be called water overflowing. Because compared with other cultivators of the Purple Mansion, Qin Daoxian, the Purple Mansion cultivator, has accumulated too much. The Dao realm in the high section of the Dao realm, the body-refining cultivation in the skull-smashing rebirth realm, and the soul that is close to the real person of Jindan. Let Qin Daoxian be unable to advance under the cultivation of the Zifu period. This terrifying accumulation caused Qin Daoxian to run the Qinyuan Sword Sutra, just now, ready to break through the Golden Elixir period. Countless mana poured into his Dantian Purple Mansion, and formed a round golden core with lightning speed. With the condensation of the golden core, his mana transformed again from the limit state Zifu mana, to the golden core mana, and the power was enhanced. Not only that, in the high Dao realm of the 4th realm, his golden core mana is still being further tempered and strengthened. It's just that this kind of tempering is not achieved overnight, and it is estimated that it will take a few years before the tempering is completely completed. In other words, in the past few years, Qin Daoxian's strength will continue to improve. It has to be said that Qin Daoxian's breakthrough to the Golden Core stage this time is easier than his previous breakthrough to the Purple Palace. As for ordinary cultivators who need medicinal pills to assist in breakthroughs, it does not exist for Qin Daoxian at all. With his accumulation, he no longer needs to use medicine pills. If he hadn't deliberately suppressed it and wanted to stabilize his hand, let his body refinement break through first, and then break through the Golden Core stage, it is estimated that he would have become a Golden Core cultivator 2 or 3 years ago. Boom! Qin Daoxian flew straight into the sky, drilled a big hole in the cave with his head, and drilled directly out of the mountain. Standing in the sky, Qin Daoxian saw Luo Li and the others who had retreated 100 miles away at a glance. He nodded to Luo Li and said to the two of them, "You can retreat another 500 miles. What?" Before Luo Li could react, Luo Shiyuan immediately pulled Luo Li back. "Let's go." For the two Zifu cultivators, the distance of 500 miles came in an instant. Seeing Luo Li and Luo Xiu retreating 500 miles away, Qin Daoxian calmed down. He could feel that the power of his golden core thunder tribulation was much stronger than Zhou Minghe. But Qin Daoxian was not afraid at all. Because compared to Zhou Minghe, his accumulation is more than 100 times that of the other party. If even he can't survive the golden core thunder tribulation, it is estimated that no one in this world can survive this calamity. Just as Qin Daoxian had expected, Jiayun directly enveloped the radius of 500 miles. Within 500 miles, Qin Daoxian was naked, standing under the robbery cloud as small as an ant. But it was this ant that exuded a terrifying aura that made even the thunder tribulation cloud tremble. Seemingly provoked by Qin Daoxian's arrogant attitude, the first thunder tribulation struck down at Qin Daoxian. Qin Daoxian's entire body was bathed in the pillar of thunder. That's it. After reaching the Skull Crush Rebirth realm, Qin Daoxian felt like he was soaking in a hot spring, which was a deadly calamity for ordinary monks. Not to mention the damage, he even disliked the hot spring's water temperature. He shook his head. This level of calamity of the physical body doesn't have the effect of tempering the physical body for me, so don't waste time. With that said, his body trembled slightly, and the pillar of thunder was directly shaken away by his terrifying physical strength. Seeing this incredible scene, Luo Shiyuan couldn't help opening his mouth and murmured, "The thunder tribulation was shaken away? Great." Seeing that Qin Daoxian was extremely relaxed, Luo Li's heart was finally put back in her stomach. Next, the second mana robbery and the third divine soul robbery. Under Qin Daoxian's mana and soul, which was comparable to or even surpassed that of the golden core cultivator, it was all easy to pass. Luo Shiyuan looked at Qin Daoxian crossing the golden core thunder tribulation, and it was not like the death or life recorded in the ancient books of the clan at all. If it wasn't for Qin Daoxian being naked, he would even think that the other party was here to play. It's too easy. Luo Shiyuan was still in disbelief. Not only Luo Shiyuan couldn't believe it, but hundreds of miles away, a Zifu period clear water ape was hiding at the foot of a mountain, secretly peeping at Qin Daoxian's tribulation. In its view, no matter how strong this Zifu cultivator is, he will not be found hundreds of miles away. And this Zifu clear water monkey is none other than a neighbor of the mermaid clan. He is the patriarch of the Clear Water Monkey clan, who is entrenched on a third-order spiritual vein near the Magic Monkey Mountain. Back then, when Qin Daoxian was building his foundation, he had a face-to-face meeting with the patriarch of the Zifu period Clear Water Monkey clan. It's just that the other party was shocked by Qin Daoxian pulling the Jinhai Hall banner. Unexpectedly, this one was actually attracted by the movement of Mo Yuanshan this time, and rushed to die. In the eyes of the patriarch of the Clear Water Monkey, it is hundreds of miles away from Qin Daoxian, and the other party has not yet succeeded in transcending the calamity. With the other party's consciousness, it is impossible to find it. As everyone knows, before Qin Daoxian broke through the Jindan stage, the range of his consciousness reached 700 miles. After breaking through the golden core stage, the soul was nurtured in the golden core, and the spiritual consciousness immediately more than doubled, reaching a distance of 1,500 miles. The patriarch of the Clear Water Monkey thought that Qin Daoxian would not be able to find it after being separated by hundreds of miles. He was simply ignorant. Courting death. Hundreds of miles away, a thunderstorm sounded in the ears of the Clear Water Monkey patriarch, and then his entire body exploded into a cloud of blood. The next moment, a golden light flashed back. It is the Qingying sword that Qin Daoxian merged into the Xingqian Kendo map. Today's Qingying sword has undergone a peculiar transformation after integrating the space sword intent. It has become a kind of existence between the real and the unreal. At present, Qin Daoxian's sword intent level is not high, and when his sword intent transforms into a law in the future, this shadow-bearing sword will be a sword of space law. The immortal sword is the embodiment of the laws of space. Luo Shiyuan and Luo Li didn't even react when Qin Daoxian wanted to kill the Bishui monkey patriarch. It wasn't until he took back the Qingying sword that Luo Li realized that a neighbor from the Zifu period had died. Is that the patriarch of the Clear Water ape just now? Luo Li nodded. It seems so. A monster in the middle of the Purple Palace just died like this? Although Luo Shiyuan knew that Qin Daoxian was powerful, it was the first time to see Qin Daoxuan's action at such a close distance. Never mind that, Luo Li said eagerly, I'll go see Lang Qin first. Seeing his daughter's fiery look, Luo Shiyuan couldn't help shaking his head. It's really a girl's fault. Liar. Patriarch Luo. In front of his father, Qin Daoxian didn't have the embarrassment to directly call the lady, but Luo Lilier. Luo Shiyuan also knew the relationship between Qin Daoxian and Luo Li at this moment. Just when he felt embarrassed, Qin Daoxian said quickly, Patriarch Luo calls me by my name. Luo Shiyuan glanced at Qin Daoxian with a complicated expression, nodded and said, Daoxian. Daoxian, congratulations on your success in forming a pill. From now on, I will be the vassal race of the Jindan clan. Luo Shiyuan said with a look of joy on his face. Compared with the relationship between Qin Daoxian and Luo Li, in Luo Ziyuan's view, the attachment relationship between the mermaid and the Qin family is more important to him. The Qin family has become the Jindan family. With the power of the Qin family and the strength of Qin Daoxian, the Qin family is very likely to become a dominant force in Sangzhou in the future. At that time, his merman clan will really hold his thighs and have enough background and foothold in the cruel underwater world of Wangxinghai. Patriarch Luo is polite. Just as Qin Daoxian was about to speak, the communication talisman in his storage bag rang. Chapter 301. Sangzhou Guanhai Xianqing. 5 years have passed since Qin Daoxian went to the Demon Ape Mountains to retreat to break through the Golden Pill. In the past 5 years, Guanhai Xianqing has changed a lot. Originally, Guanhai Xianqing was an unfinished fairy city. At the beginning of the construction of this fairy city, considering the future development, a large blank area was reserved. Today, these blank areas have all become the soil for the industrialization of Guanhai Xianqing. Guanhai Xianqing East District, the 7th Industrial Zone. This is one of the magical instrument production bases in Guanhai Xianqing. In the industrial area, large-scale magical instrument factories stand here. Nie Zhong, are you off work? Nie Zhong, who was wearing a brand-new blue factory uniform, just walked out of the factory, when a young man wearing the same blue factory uniform greeted him with a smile. As everyone knows, Nie Zhong heard this, his face turned pale and he coughed. No big or small, call Director Nie. Hearing this, the young man stepped forward immediately, slapped Nie Zhong on the head and shouted, Stinky boy, I want you to show off. Hey, don't move Lao Tzu's new clothes. Baby Nie Zhong patted his new uniform, his face full of pride. The Nie Zhong in front of him and the young man next to him were the first batch of students who entered the Chen family's technical school 5 years ago. Nie Zhong entered the school run by the Chen family. With his steadfastness and willingness to learn, he successfully graduated from the technical school in less than a year. Then he was assigned to this magic tool factory and he worked for more than 4 years. In the past 4 years, Nie Zhong not only got a foundation pill with the interest-free loan from Chongping Industrial and Commercial Bank. Through more than 4 years of work in Social Security, he also obtained an opportunity to break through the foundation building period in Guanghai Xianqing's main spiritual eye. In the past, a loose cultivator like Nie Zhong, who had no background and no resources, could only win a chance to build a foundation unless he went to the battlefield of Izumo. But now there are countless scattered cultivators like Nie Zhong in Guang'an Prefecture, who don't need to go to the battlefield of Izumo to work hard to get a good future. People like Nie Zhong are a typical example. From the scattered repair of nothing, the foundation is successfully established. Now, with Nie Zhong's successful foundation building, his artifact refining skills have made new breakthroughs, and he can already refine second-order low-grade magic tools with the help of the Rongling furnace. In this way, not only did Nie Zhong's income skyrocket, but his status in the factory area was also further improved. No, the 7th Industrial Zone in the east of the city, the 5th factory of the Guanhai Instrument Manufacturing Factory, built a new workshop and promoted Nie Zhong to be the person in charge of this workshop, that is, the workshop director. Since then, Nie Zhong can be regarded as an official. In the period when he first entered the factory, a mere workshop director who was in charge of mortals and loose cultivators would not have been in the eyes of cultivators like Nie at all. However, as Nie Zhong stayed in the factory for longer and longer, he witnessed the rapid development of the factory and the substantial increase in the income of the casual repairers in the factory. The gold content of Nie Zhong, the workshop director, has also risen further. Along the way, others saw the brand new uniform on Nie Zhong's body, and their eyes were full of envy. Old Nie, don't show off, let me tell you, I have applied to be transferred to the 9th Industrial Zone. Sure enough, when Ye Zhong heard this, he immediately pricked up his ears and hurriedly said, "Brother Situ, tell me what's going on. How did you enter the 9th industrial zone? Isn't that an industrial zone that only the direct descendants of the Qin family can enter?" Although the Qin family wants to make Guanhai Xianqing an industrial fairy city, even the industrial fairy city has different levels of internal confidentiality. For example, the production of first-order and second-order magical instruments with low technical content is carried out in 8 industrial areas in the east of the city. And those with higher technical content, such as the Qin family's mysterious spirit armor manufacturing and automatic spirit talisman manufacturing, are placed in the 9th industrial zone with the highest level of confidentiality. Although the 9th industrial zone has only one industrial zone, its actual area is much larger than the 3 industrial zones in the east of the city combined. The location of the 9th industrial zone is in the outer ring of the north of the city. In the past, only the Qin family members and the direct descendants of the Qin family's vassal families could apply to join this industrial zone. Moreover, the application conditions are extremely strict, not only to go through numerous identity checks, but also to make an oath before entering. It can be said that in this 9th industrial zone, everything is pretended to be the core property of the Qin family. It stands to reason that in such a place, it is impossible for the Qin family to let an outsider in. Seeing Ye Zhong's unbelievable look, Situ Jun smiled and said, "I'm in the Qin family." "You?" Ye Zhong pointed at Situ Jun, his face twitched. "The guy who eats soft rice is so shameless." "Just be jealous, my lady is not only beautiful but also gentle and considerate," Situ Jun said with a flat mouth. "The number of loose cultivators who want to join the Qin family is like a crucian carp crossing the river. You people are sour." Nye Zhong looked at the proud Situ Jun and said he didn't want to talk to him. "Hey Nye Zhong, don't go, we haven't finished talking yet. Don't bother me." Well, in the end it's still jealousy. Roll. Qingxi District, this is the old town of Guanhai Xianqing. In the west area of the city, there are all kinds of shops, inns, banks and other buildings. In the independent courtyard of a high-end inn, several Ji family cultivators stayed here, and the one headed was actually the Ji family's Jindan elder. "Yen Yuan, what did the junior of the Qin family say?" In the independent courtyard, an old man in a gray robe was lying on the seat with his eyes slightly closed. The old man sensed the approach of the young monk, opened his sharp eyes and asked. "Third elder." The young monk named Ji Yenyuan, wearing a blue Taoist robe and a restrained expression, said respectfully, "The Qin family said that their patriarch is in retreat, and it is inconvenient to see guests." Humph. Hearing this, the third elder of the Ji family raised his bushy eyebrows fiercely. "Him just a junior from the Purple Mansion, so big. Why, do you think that he is lucky enough to win Jiangzui's waist so he can treat the world's Jindan cultivators as nothing? There is no wall that does not leak the wind." Although Qin Daoxian warned the clansmen not to leak the results of the battle between him and Jiangzui, the outcome of this battle is still known to the outside world. Perhaps the people who leaked this battle were not the Jiang family and the Qin family, but other monks who were passing by to watch the battle. After all, the battle between Qin Daoxian and Jiangzui broke out above the Wangxinghai Sea. At that time, the Zhou family held the Golden Core celebration. There were many cultivators in Zifu along the way. If they were not in order, they were seen by a cultivator of Zifu and spread the word. Afterwards, neither the Jiang family nor the Qin family came forward to refute the rumor. Obviously, the acquiescence of the Qin family and the Jiang family undoubtedly confirmed the fact that Qin Daoxian and Jiangzu were slightly better in the battle. This time, not only Cangzhou but the entire Wangxinghai is spreading the name of Qin Daoxian. To be able to win over a late Jindan cultivator with the cultivation level of the Zifu period, even the first place in the Zifu Tianjiao list is difficult to achieve. You must know that Jiang Zui is not an ordinary late-stage Jindan cultivator, although he failed to make it to Wan Xinghai's Jindan real person list. But in terms of strength, it is a lot stronger than the ordinary late Jindan cultivator. If it weren't for this, Jiang Zui would not be known as the closest cultivator of the Jiang family to the nascent Soul period. But listening to the tone of the third elder of the Ji family, it was obvious that Jiang Zui was not taken seriously. Ji Yenyuan saw that his third elder was furious and did not dare to speak, so he immediately knelt down and buried his head deeply on the ground. Ji Yenyuan knew that although the third elder of the family was powerful and ranked on the Jindan reality list, he had a disadvantage, that is, jealousy and cruelty or extreme murderousness. Ji Yenyuan didn't understand why the family sought to cooperate with the Qin family and sent such a killing over. The full name of the third elder of the Ji family is Ji Suhui. His name is bright and infinite, but his behavior is completely different from his name. Not to mention Ji Suhui outside, even inside Ji's house, there are murderers who can stop children from crying. Now that Ji Yenyuan is following behind this master, it is better to say that he came to the Qin family for trouble more vividly than to seek cooperation with the Qin family. The members of the Ji family stayed in Guanhai Xianqing for less than 3 days. The Qin family said that Qin Daoxian had retreated to break through the golden pill. This Ji Suhui was extremely unhappy, as if he had been wronged by the heavens. Ji Yenyuan dared to guarantee that if Qin Daoxian was not standing behind the palace master of Jinhai Palace, because of this Ji Suhui dared to bloodbath this immortal city. Bloodbath the fairy city. This Ji Suhui did a lot in Izumo. Even, according to rumors, the other party has also done such evil things in Wanxinghai. It's just that Qianyuan Jianzong did not capture the evidence, and secondly, due to the background of the Ji family, it did not go into depth. Seeing Ji Suhui getting more and more angry, Ji Yenyuan hurriedly knelt down and said, "Third Elder, although Qin Daoxian is in retreat, the disciple has investigated in detail the large workshop opened by the Qin family in Guanhai Xianqing in the past few days, and has made an amazing discovery." "Oh." Ji Suhui raised his eyebrows. "What did you find?" Ji Yenyuan breathed a sigh of relief. He quickly stood up, and took out 3 things from the storage bag. They are a second-order flying sword, a second-order rejuvenation pill, and a second-order lightning-gathering talisman. "Third Elders, please take a look. This is what the disciples have investigated in Guanhai Xianqing in the past few days." Ji Suhui flipped through it at will, and found that they were all low-level magical medicine pills, and he was suddenly lacking in interest. "It's all junk. What do you use it for?" After all, Ji Suhui threw it on the ground in disgust. Seeing this, Ji Yenyuan bravely picked up these 3 items one by one and said patiently, "Third Elder Mingjian, these items are indeed difficult to get into your eyes, but for the cultivators of the Foundation, they are all indispensable." "Nice one." He paused. "On the market in Jianghu, a second-order high-grade magic weapon can be priced at most 30,000 to 40,000 spirit stones, and the Qin family can actually mass-produce such a magic weapon." Hearing this, Ji Suhui became interested. "You just said mass production?" "Exactly. I once performed the ecstasy technique on a loose cultivator in the eastern district of the city, and the other party personally disclosed the output of such second-order instruments. According to the other party, the most common magic tool factory in Guanhai Xianqing can produce thousands of second-order magic tools per day. In the east area of the city, there are such factories of magic tools everywhere, not only the number but also the types of magic tools." "Wow." Hearing this, Ji Suhui stood up abruptly. He grabbed Ji Yenyuan's shoulder, stared at the other party with his eyes fixed, and his eyes showed a look of extreme excitement. "One workshop can produce the number of second-order magic weapons in one day. Thousands? Do you know how much they cost?" Ji Yenyuan endured the severe pain from his shoulders, gritted his teeth and said, "I don't know. That loose cultivator doesn't know much except for the speed of his personal refining and the number of people in the factory. I don't know anything about it other than the output." Seeing Ji Yenyuan's pained expression, Ji Suhui gently released his hand and said, "Oh, this magic weapon was made by him." "Exactly," Ji Yenyuan nodded. "According to what he said, he can refine a second-order magic weapon within 3 hours. "Impossible." Ji Suhui shook his head and said, "Although I am not an artifact refiner, I have personally observed the artifact refining by an artifact refiner in the clan, and it is impossible to do so quickly." This is also where the disciples are puzzled. The artifact refining masters trained by the Qin family, why are artifact refining so fast? Hearing this, Ji Suhui laughed. "It seems that we have come to the right Qin family." Originally, the ancestor saw Cangzhou becoming increasingly chaotic and wanted to force his hand, but he didn't expect to pick up a big bargain. Although I don't know why the Qin family was able to refine a magic weapon in such a short period of time, Ji Suhui had a hunch that the Qin family hid a huge secret. Maybe this is the real reason for the rapid rise of the Qin family. Although Ji Suhui doesn't like low-level magical tools, but the number of low-level magical tools is much different, and the meaning is very different. Lingshi, not to mention Ji Suhui, even Yuanying Jinjuan Yuanshan Daojun can't do without it. Just because of the power of creation contained in the Spirit Stone, it can not only act as a currency among low-level monks, but also play a certain role in nascent soul and even higher-level monks. The only troublesome thing is that it is very cumbersome to extract the power of creation in the Spirit Stone. Fortunately, there is no way to simply extract the power of good fortune in the Spirit Stone, otherwise this kind of thing would have been monopolized by high-level monks long ago. It is absolutely impossible for low-level monks to trade with each other at will. Seeing the contemplative expression on the third elder's face, Ji Yenyuan did not dare to interrupt. After a long while, Ji Suhui stood up abruptly. Come on, let's go to the Qin family's factory to see it. 3 elders, are we going to be so aggressive? Hey. Hearing this, Ji Suhui smiled lightly, turned his head and said, I really don't know how the family teaches the younger generation now, boy. I will teach you to be good. Any treasure in this world is owned by whoever is powerful, understand? I see that your juniors are the ones from the Qinyuan sword sect who have smoothed their brains and blood. Although he did not agree with the words of the third elder, Ji Yenyuan was still a little bit sullen when he was pointed at the nose and scolded by the elders of the family, and immediately said, The third elder, please. That's right. Ji Suhui nodded with satisfaction. With me here, what are you afraid of? What the 3 elders said is very true. View Haixinqing. City Lord's Mansion. Since the Qin family built Guanhai Xianqing into an industrial fairy city 5 years ago, the core of the Qin family's work has been transferred from the Jianghu Island Industrial Zone to Sequoia Island. It has to be said that with the foundation of the Jianghu Island Industrial Zone, the industrialization process of Guanhai Xianqing is progressing extremely smoothly. The only obstacle encountered may be that Guanhai Xianqing has too much production capacity, and the existing market cannot digest it at all. Chen Dalian was obedient, and stored all the excess instruments and medicinal pills produced. After Qin Daoshen successfully formed the pill, he would solve the problem of the sales market. Despite this, Qin Dalian was still a little frightened when she saw the accumulation of more and more various medicinal herbs. After all, compared with the original Jianghu Island Industrial Zone, after the scattered repairs were brought into the Qin family industrial system, the production capacity that erupted in Guanhai Xianqing was more than 100 times that of the past. If it weren't for the delay in solving the sales market problem, the expansion rate of Guanhai Xianqing's industrial scale would be more than 10 times faster. In the city lord's mansion, Qin Dalian is concentrating on checking various approval documents. Immediately, an astonishing momentum erupted from the east of the city. Who is it? Dare to make trouble in my Qin family? Qin Dalian suddenly stood up. In the past 5 years, although Qin Daolian's strength has not improved much, with the control of the huge machine of the Qin family, the power of Qin Dalian has increased day by day. At this moment he was angry and it really made others tremble. Chapter 302. Guanhai Xianqing, Qingdong District. Oh! Dare to spy on the secrets of my Qin family. A loud shout resounded throughout the eastern district of the city. Immediately afterwards, a cyan light burst into the sky and crashed toward the east of the city. Boom! With an explosion, a figure wearing cyan spirit armor stood in front of the 3G family cultivators. My Qin family said that the young patriarch is in retreat, and it is inconvenient to see guests. Are your Ji family trespassing on my Qin family's important place to provoke a dispute between Cangzhou and Jingzhou? Although his whole body was wrapped in cyan spirit armor, he could still tell from his voice that this person was the military minister of the Qin family, Qin Fuxing. In 5 years, Qin Fuxing's cultivation has not changed much, and he has only been promoted to the middle of Zifu. When the Qin family had so much vitality essence, Qin Fuxing's cultivation progress was extremely slow. But his strength, compared to 5 years ago, has undergone earth-shaking changes. 5 years ago, Qin Fuxing might have barely made it to the Zifu Tianjiao list with his third-order high-grade power spirit armor. And the ranking on the Zifu Tianjiao list will not be too high. But in 5 years, Qin Fuxing's Dao realm not only broke through the third-layer star transformation realm, but also created his own sword art that fits his Dao realm. You must know that in the same Dao state, there is a huge gap between the monks who created their own sword art and those who did not create their own sword art. Before Zhou Mubai created his own sword art, his ranking on the Zifu Tianjiao ranking was barely mid to low. But after he created the Qinglian sword art, his ranking on the Zifu Tianjiao ranking rose by leaps and bounds, and he jumped into the top 10, becoming the top Zifu cultivator in Wangxinghai. Zhou Mubai's strength was even comparable to that of the Jindan real person who had just broken through. At this time, Qin Fuxing belonged to this situation. It is true that Qin Fuxing's Dao realm is only at the 3rd stage, slightly inferior to Zhou Mubai, but Qin Fuxing has learned the melee magic power of 3 heads and 6 arms, which is enough to make up for this gap in Dao realm. Coupled with Qin Fuxing's possession of a 3rd-rank high-grade power spirit armor, the two are really fighting each other, and Zhou Mubai is probably not Qin Fuxing's opponent today. I have to say that in the past 5 years, although Qin Daoxuan's progress has been amazing, the progress of the younger generations of the Qin family has not been slow. Except for Qin Fuxing, the remaining 9 Qin family sword cultivators, relying on the 3rd order low-grade power spirit armor, can basically compete with the cultivators who are ranked at the bottom of the Zifu Tianjiao list. Coupled with Qin Daoxuan's breakthrough to the Golden Core stage, his strength is so powerful that he can't even figure it out himself. In this way, the Qin family's current strength is really not weak. East District. Not long after Qin Fuxing stopped the Ji family cultivator, one after another, they flew towards this place with extreme speed. The cultivator of the Zifu escaped quickly, and in the blink of an eye, 300 figures stood behind Qin Fuxing. If you look closely, you will find that the more than 300 cultivators of the Purple Mansion behind Qin Fuxing are wearing at least 2nd order high-grade power spirit armor. The dozens of people standing in front are wearing 3rd order low-grade power spirit armor. Seeing so many cultivators of Zifu, and wearing the same cyan spirit armor, the contempt on Ji Suhui's face subsided slightly and became a little more serious. Outsiders say that Sangzhou doesn't even have a decent cultivator family, but I didn't expect this old man to see so many Zifu cultivators here today. Ji Suhui looked around at everyone and said with a smile, "Interesting, really interesting." He paused. "However, do you think the gap between Zifu and Jindan can be eliminated just by the number of people?" Qin Fuxing had a cold face and cupped his hands. "My Qin family has no intention of offending seniors, but this is the secret place of my Qin family. If seniors take a step forward, don't blame my Qin family for being rude." "Ha ha ha." Ji Suhui laughed wildly. "Rude? A junior in the middle of the Purple Mansion, how dare he say such rude words?" It seems that the old man has not done anything in these years, and the outside world has forgotten the name of the real blood slaughter. After all, the old man's eyes flashed thunder. However, Qin Fuxing and others responded faster. "Don't look at the fact that there are only more than 300 cultivators in the Purple House, but all of them are cultivators of the Qin family. The military cultivator of the Qin family was the military department that Qin Daoxian personally established to defend the family. Although the cultivator's great power is attributed to himself, as long as the cultivation base is high, the strength will not be weak. But with the same cultivation, there are always those who are good at fighting and those who are not good at fighting. For example, some monks are good at cultivating immortal arts such as alchemy, weapon refining, and formation, but they are not good at fighting with people. No matter how high this kind of cultivator is, normally no cultivation force will push them out to fight with others. Therefore, for any major cultivation force, it is necessary to establish a special force department. Ordinary small families may not pay much attention to these, but the slightly larger Jindan family and even the Yuanying family will have departments that focus on production and departments that focus on force. The military department of the Qin family is the military department of the Qin family. As the military department of the Qin family, the military department of the Qin family took into account the preparations for various combat situations at the beginning of its establishment. Fighting with high-level monks as low-level monks is a compulsory course for these military monks. From the point of view of a loose cultivator, a low-level monk fighting a high-level monk is no different from courting death. But for the military cultivator of the Qin family, not necessarily. One of the magic weapons for low-level monks to fight against high-level monks is the formation method. The formation method is one of the compulsory subjects for all the cultivators of the Qin family. Arrangement. Seeing that the two sides could not be kind, Qin Fuxing shouted. Immediately, more than 300 escaping lights scattered out in the sky and the ground in all directions surrounding Ji Suhui in the center. This is the most instructed by the cultivators of the Qin family's military department, and it is also the most powerful combination attack method, called Fanxing Sword Formation. This formation takes the formation of people as the meaning of the stars, and surrounds the enemy like the stars and the moon. Of course, siege and suppression are only the most basic functions of all group attack formations. The reason why this star sword formation is favored by the cultivators of the Qin family's army is that it shares the role of attack. Once the Fanxing sword formation is formed, as long as the enemy trapped by the formation cannot break the upper limit of the formation, his attack will be shared by the formation. An attack by a Jindan cultivator would definitely be fatal to a Zifu cultivator, but if it were distributed to dozens of Zifu cultivators, it would be hard to help the other party. If there are more than 300 people. Ji Suhui is a master of art and boldness. As a cultivator of the Jindan reality list, The name of the blood slaughter is not only in the Wangxinghai, but even among the Jindan real people in Xianyun Prefecture, it is very prestigious. There are only a few hundred cultivators in the Purple Mansion. If ordinary cultivators of the late Jindan stage were here, they would be a little terrified. But the number of cultivators in the Zifu that he killed in his life far exceeded this number. Therefore, seeing Qin Fuxing and others forming a siege, Ji Suhui not only did not take the opportunity to destroy it, but also the old waited in place and let them do what they wanted. During the period, Ji Suhui did not forget to educate the younger monks in the clan. You guys are optimistic, all formations in front of absolute strength are all garbage. Although Ji Yenyuan and the others were surrounded by more than 300 cultivators from the Purple Mansion, they were trembling with fear at the moment, but when they heard the words of their third elder, they still nodded and said, "What the third elder said is very true." Humph. Ji Suhui saw that Ji Yenyuan and others were insincere, snorted coldly and didn't care about them. Immediately, his body flashed, his body was wrapped in lightning and he punched Qin Fuxing directly. Chapter 303. Boom. A dull explosion sounded in Qin Fuxing's chest. The next moment, a circle of white light waves with Qin Fuxing as the core, rushes out directly. Immediately afterwards, the spiritual armor on each cultivator in the star sword formation, like the stars in the night sky, kept flashing. Seeing this scene, Ji Suhui's indifferent face became serious. The formation of scattered attacks? In front, Qin Fuxing held the immortal sword, gently pulled a sword flower and said coldly, "Ji Renren, just retreat, my Qin family can pretend that nothing happened, and please Ji Renren not to make mistakes. Stop talking nonsense. Do you think that a mere formation can stop the old man? You must know that any formation has its limits. If you break this limit, the formation will self-destruct." Hearing this, Qin Fuxing waited intently. He knew that what Ji Suhui said was true. Although the Fanxing sword formation was a sword formation majored by the cultivators of the military department of the Qin family, the ultimate pressure that this sword formation itself could withstand was only the peak of Jindan. Once the opponent's attack exceeds the peak level of Jindan, the remaining pressure will be transferred to the eye of the formation, which is Qin Fuxing. Ji Suhui, as a top-level Jindan cultivator on the Jindan reality list, must have surpassed the peak of Jindan with his extreme attack power. In other words, the key to this victory is whether Qin Fuxing can withstand the remaining power spilled out of the star sword array. After the simple verbal confrontation, Ji Suhui stopped talking nonsense, and the white Taoist robe on his body shattered directly. I saw his body exuding golden light, and the thunder was overflowing. Off the field, Qin Daolian, who came after Qin Fuxing and the others, had an anxious look on her pretty face. When Qin Daoxian was in seclusion, although Qin Daolian was the acting patriarch of the family, his own cultivation had reached the early stage of Zifu. But Qin Daolian's own strength is not strong among the cultivators of Zifu. Even Qin Daoxian deliberately used the power of creation to create a third-order high-grade spirit armor for her in order to protect her safety. But it can only defend against the attacks of ordinary Jindan cultivators. For a top-level Jindan real person like Ji Suhui with Qin Daolian's strength, he is not qualified to shoot in front of the opponent at all. At this moment, seeing the anxious situation on the field, Qin Daolian had to be anxious. Because she knew that no matter the outcome of this battle, it would not be a good thing for the Qin family. If this is victorious, the Qin family will offend the behemoth Jingzhouji family after offending the Jiang family in Taizhou. This is undoubtedly inconsistent with the strategic goal of the low-key development of the Qin family. If the military cultivator of the Qin family is defeated, let Ji Suhui break into the Qin family industrial area, and let the Ji family cultivator discover all the secrets of the Qin family's industrial production. It is bound to be more coveted by the Ji family, the Yuanying family. Even if the Ji family won't make a clear robbery because of the Jinhai Palace master behind the Qin family, there will definitely be no less dirty tricks behind them. Being targeted by such a behemoth Jingzhouji family will inevitably bring great obstacles to the development of the Qin family. Under the dilemma, it is no wonder that Qin Daolian felt anxious. At this moment, Qin Daolian couldn't help but secretly blamed herself. The young patriarch only handed over the family to her for 5 years, and she encountered such a big problem. It is hard to imagine how the young clan chief and the old clan chief survived the family crisis when the strength of the clan was still weak. In the past, Qin Daoxian had been shielding the family monks from the wind and rain. When Qin Dalian took over the family, she realized how difficult it was for a family forced to survive in the world of immortality. Looking around, they are all well-dressed, but under their humble and polite appearance, all they hide are naked interests and wolf ambitions. This point, whether the Qin family is weak or strong now, has not changed. Just when Qin Dalian frowned, a voice that made her almost cry with excitement rang in her ears. It seems that I came back in time. Hearing this, Qin Dalian quickly turned her head and saw behind her a pair of young monks like Biren standing behind her. The young monk's white robe was spotless, and a faint smile appeared on Jun Lang's face. The female cultivator next to her had an alluring face, a slender figure, and her waist could only be grasped. It's just that the female cultivator's eyes were all placed on the male cultivator beside him at the moment, as if turning a deaf ear to the battle not far away. These two were just Qin Daoxian and Luo Li, who used me Qin Fan to rush back immediately after receiving the message from Qin Dalian. Young Patriarch. Qin Dalian immediately jumped into Qin Daoxuan's arms with excitement, looking like she was crying. Qin Daoxian supported Qin Daolian's shoulders, rubbed her head and said with a smile, "You're such an adult and you still cry. I remember you were the toughest when you were a child and you never cried." Qin Dalian blushed. Qin Daoxian made fun of the other party and stopped talking, standing with his hands behind his back, his eyes on the battlefield. Front. The battle between Ji Suhui and the cultivator of the Qin family's military department has completely entered into a white-hot battle. Qin Daoxian glanced at him and found that this Ji Suhui was an individual cultivator in addition to his purifying cultivation. The realm of rebirth from a drop of blood. Qin Daoxian frowned slightly. You must know that even his current body training is only at the realm of rebirth from a broken skull. Compared with Ji Suhui's blood-dripping realm, it is a large level lower. The blood-dropping realm of a body-refining cultivator is equivalent to the golden core stage of a chi-refining cultivator. In other words, this Ji Suhui is a top real person who has reached the level of Jindan for both body refining and chi refining. On the battlefield, the lightning flashes with the golden light. This thunder light is caused by the blessing of Ji Suhui's Thunder Dao domain, while the golden light is a phenomenon unique to the cultivators in the blood-dropping realm. After the body-refining cultivator is promoted to the blood-dripping realm, the blood in the whole body will change from ordinary red to golden. Once the physical strength is fully exerted, the whole body will flicker with golden light. Therefore, some monks also call it the golden body. Of course, the statement of the golden body is just an illusion, because only the blood of the blood-dropping cultivator has transformed into golden color. In other parts of the body, there is no transformation that is different from ordinary people. The physical body of the body-refining cultivator really begins to transform, after reaching the level of the nascent soul stage equivalent to the chi-refining cultivator, after integrating the true meaning of immortality into the physical body. However, although there is no obvious abnormal change in the body of the blood-dropping realm, this cultivation cultivator's body recovery ability has reached a level that can be called abnormal. This can be seen from the name of this cultivation realm. The realm of dripping blood is called the realm of rebirth after dripping blood. Theoretically, as long as a drop of blood remains, this cultivator will be able to recover again, which is extremely abnormal. Compared with the pure Jindan stage cultivator, the survivability is not known to be many times stronger. Ordinary Jindan cultivator, let alone a drop of blood, even if the most important Jindan still exists, must use the secret method of seizing the house as soon as possible, and find a new body to survive. It's like a cultivator in the blood-dripping realm. Even if he is shattered, he is not afraid of it. Of course, if someone could really beat this cultivator to smithereens, he wouldn't mind smashing it to ashes again. On the battlefield. At this moment, Ji Suhui has completely lost his relaxed and freehand posture. Now, apart from using the desperate secret technique with great side effects, he is doing his best. Thunder Dao territory and body refinement cultivation are the two major means by which he dominates the golden core stage. All are used. But it doesn't seem to work. Indeed, under the blessing of Thunder Dao domain and blood-dropping realm body refinement, his attack power surpassed the peak of Jindan, and directly entered a special level between Jindan cultivator and Yuanying Jinjuan. This is also the reason why he can be on the Jindan reality list. The attack power can reach this level, not to mention the cultivator of the Zifu. Even if the ordinary cultivator of the late Jindan comes, he can't withstand a few rounds of his full-strength attacks. This is also the confidence of Ji Suhui's arrogance and domineering in the Chen family. But now, although his attack has broken the tolerance limit of the Star Sword formation, the part of the power that exceeds it can't break the defense of this Zifu cultivator. This can't help but make Ji Suhui a little dumbfounded, not to mention the cultivator of the Zifu. The ordinary cultivator of the late Jindan stage doesn't have such a terrifying defense, right? And shouldn't the Cyan spirit armor on his body be a third-order high-grade spirit armor? Why is the defense so terrifying? And the other side's comprehension of sword intent and sword art? All of them are defensive sword intent and sword art. The back-earth sword intent that Qin Fuxing understood was originally born out of the Qin family's rock sword art. At the beginning, the Qin family was not as good as now, and there were not many swordsmanships that could be provided to the family cultivators. And what Qin Fuxing liked the most was this rock sword art. In fact, as a sword cultivator who is good at attacking, the Panshijian Ju and the thick earth sword intent that he later realized are really not in line with the appetite of most sword cultivators. As a sword cultivator who doesn't want to attack Wushuang, or even fight beyond the ranks, all of them regard themselves as the favored sons of heaven. Only Qin Fuxing, in terms of kendo talent, Qin Fuxing's kendo talent is stronger than Qin Daoxian himself. In Qin Daoxuan's opinion, Qin Fuxing's kendo talent can even be compared with Zhou Mubai of the Zhou family. You must know that Qin Fuxing was able to comprehend the sword intent during the qi refining period. Although Qin Daoxian helped him, the more important reason was still Qin Fuxing himself. When Qin Daoxian first realized the sword intent during the qi refining period, he realized it completely by relying on the ability to store his understanding in the Hongmeng Enlightenment Classic. If he relies on his own understanding, whether he can comprehend the sword intent during the foundation establishment period is a matter of two things. Qin Daoxuan's kendo talent, looking at Sangzhou, can only be said to be a kendo genius, but he can't be regarded as a monster. But with the blessing of the Hongmeng Enlightenment Classic, the evildoer is not enough to describe his degree of perversion. Even so, after accepting a few epiphanies, Qin Fuxing actually achieved a level comparable to that of Qin Daoxian, which shows how powerful his kendo talent is. However, although Qin Fuxing's kendo talent is strong, his will to win is not strong. Compared to winning, Qin Fuxing's heart is to protect the safety of the Qin family. This can be seen from his swordsmanship. A monk's mouth may deceive people, but a monk's way will never lie. It is difficult for a cultivator with a protective heart to comprehend such a profound sword intent, let alone create such an amazing defensive sword art. Boom! Another dull explosion. The thunder light pierced through the khaki aperture and bombarded Qin Fuxing's cyan spiritual armor on his chest, causing him to sway slightly. But that's all. Not to mention the injury, Qin Fuxing didn't even change his eyes. Do not break defense. Under the shared pressure of the Fanqing sword formation, Ji Suhui, the top real person on the Jindan reality list, could not even break the defense of a middle-stage cultivator of Zifu. Speaking of this scene, its sensational effect is no less than that of Qin Daoxian defeating Jianghu. On the field, Ji Suhui had a livid face, murderous but helpless. Ji Yenyuan and Ji Yenyuan were both pale. Even if they are fools, they can see that the situation at this time is not good for the three of his Ji family. The third elder is too big to see the Zifu cultivator, Ji Yenyuan secretly said. As a Zifu cultivator who has entered the real fairyland, he clearly knows how perverted the Zifu cultivators who are at the top of the Zifu Tianjiao list. In his opinion, Fairy Qi Yao, who ranked first, and Qin Daoxian, a cultivator of the Qin family who was born at that time, are definitely much stronger than ordinary Jindan cultivators. Although Ji Suhui is on the list of real people of Jindan, it is too reckless to rush up like this when there are more than 300 Zifu cultivators waiting in line with this level of Zifu cultivator. But as a junior in the clan, in the face of such a brutal third elder of the Ji family, Ji Yenyuan did not dare to say any words of persuasion. You must know that Ji Suhui's name of cruelty is famous not only in the outside world but also in the clan. Ji Yenyuan clearly remembered that there was once a clan of the early Zifu family in the Yanzi generation. Because of his disobedience to the third elder, he was directly punched into flesh by the opponent. Because of this, the third elder was punished by the ancestors into the family's heart-refining cave for 13 years. But out of Lianxing cave, Ji Suhui went directly to the battlefield of Izumo. Not only did his personality not change, but he also set off a storm on the battlefield of Izumo, earning the name of Blood Slaughter. This time, the family sent him and the third elder to come to the Qin family, wanting to inquire about the truth of the Qin family. To be honest, Ji Yenyuan felt fear and rejection from the bottom of his heart. No one wants to stay with a lunatic, yes, in Ji Yenyuan's eyes. The third elder Ji Suhui is strong, but he is too crazy. He had no doubt that if Ji Suhui won today, he might go crazy and slaughter Guanhai Xianqing next. By then, the trouble they have caused will be big. Whether the Ji family will be implicated and punished by Qinyuan Jianzong, Ji Yenyuan does not know, but as an entourage he will definitely not be able to escape. Thinking of this, Ji Yenyuan even expected that Ji Suhui would be better off with Qin Jiado, and the two sides would stop. However, things didn't go his way. Unable to attack for a long time, Ji Suhui went completely crazy. Dead. Die. You ants of the Qin family have a way of fighting against me alone. Later the old man will break the line, and you will definitely leave your Qin family behind. All to die for. Hearing this, Qin Daoxian, who was standing with his hands behind his back and watching the battle from a distance, turned cold in an instant. Ji family Ji Suhui, even if he was not a cultivator at the beginning, had heard the name of the real blood slaughter. Ji Suhui may not be the strongest of all Jindan real people, but he is definitely the most notorious. Most of his fame stems from the indiscriminate killing of innocents. For this kind of lunatic, although he and the other party belong to the same camp of Wan Xinghai, Qin Daoxian undoubtedly despises this kind of person. Standing. He actually heard Ji Suhui's promise to slaughter the Qin family. How could Qin Daoxian not be angry? For others, killing your whole family may be a momentary word, but for Ji Suhui, the real person of blood slaughter, it is a naked declaration of war. Its nature is 100 times, 10,000 times more serious than the one he had with Jianghu at the beginning. It can be said that any force in Wan Xinghai will be indifferent after hearing Ji Suhui, a madman, say that he wants to kill your whole family. Even the Qinyuan sword sect cannot do it, because any cultivation force has low-level monks who are not strong. And these low-level monks are the future of this force. Ji Suhui's words almost mean that he will never die. Not only Qin Daoxian. Even Ji Yenyuan's complexion changed drastically after hearing this. He didn't even care about his own life and death at the moment and shouted, "Everyone from the Qin family, this is what Ji Suhui said alone, and it has nothing to do with my Ji family." Ji Yenyuan knew that the Qin family was not without background. If Ji Suhui really dared to slaughter the city, he would definitely die. Qin Daoxian glanced at him coldly. Ji Yenyuan only felt like falling into an ice cellar. Until Qin Daoxian looked away, he showed a relieved expression. Immediately, his face froze. This Qin Daoxian has become stronger again, and he has suddenly reached the golden stage. Qin Daoxian didn't care about Ji Yenyuan's psychological changes, only to see him flashing and appearing directly in front of Ji Suhui. Ji Suhui was completely crazy now. Seeing someone blocking him in front of him, he didn't even look and punched Qin Daoxian directly. Thunder flickered on his fists, and the momentum was pressing, making Qin Daoxian's magic robe screeching. Chapter 304. Boom. A loud explosion. A golden figure bounced back at a very fast speed, and then hit a transparent barrier, making a dull sound. Qin Daoxian stood in the air, looking indifferently at Ji Suhui, who was blasted 100 meters away by his palm and hit the space barrier. Cough cough. Ji Suhui staggered to his feet and looked around in horror. Space cage. Law realm. Ji Suhui paused word by word and gritted his teeth. This move Qin Daoxian used was exactly the one used by the master of Jinhai Palace to suppress the real person of Shinjue with a snap of his fingers, the space cage. Being able to use this trick proves that Qin Daoxian's Dao realm has made a huge breakthrough when he broke through the golden core stage. The so-called law realm refers to a sword cultivator's understanding of a certain sword intent, reaching a very deep level. At this level, it is no longer possible to simply use sword intent to describe it, but to call it the law. When a monk comprehends the Tao, he is essentially comprehending the Taoist law. As the so-called Tao 3000, it means that Tao is composed of various laws. Only when a cultivator has reached this point in his practice can he be said to have taken the first step on the road of comprehending the Tao. As for the sword intent in the first four major Tao realms, it is only a prerequisite for comprehending the law, not even the skin of the law. The first time Qin Daoxian's space sword intent was transformed into space law, the space star on the star sword Tao map in his Dantian skyrocketed nearly 100 times in an instant. Compared with the sword intent stars transformed by the Siyu sword intent next to him, it was hundreds of times larger. Siyu star is next to the space star like an inconspicuous satellite. If you don't pay attention to it, you will even ignore its existence. Inside the space cage, Ji Suhui looked at Qin Daoxian resolutely, raised his head and said, "What about the realm of laws? After all, you are just a cultivator of the Jindan period, and I am the third elder of the Ji family of the Yuanying family. You dare to kill me? Hear this. Guanhai Xianqing cast more gazes around. Ji Suhui forced his way into Guanhai Xianqing, which caused a huge commotion in Guanhai Xianqing. It's just that the city guards have been maintaining order in the city, so there is no turmoil. However, as a large family in Zhangzhou, the Qin family has a large number of loose cultivators in Guanhai Xianqing. Therefore, there are also many people who watch the fun and don't think it's a big deal. Just like when the mermen attacked the immortal city of Guang'an Prefecture, a large number of scattered cultivators gathered to watch. This time Ji Suhui forced his way into the Guanhai Xianqing industrial zone, and there were still many scattered cultivators onlookers. Don't say anything about the Jindan cultivator fighting a group of Zifu cultivators. The risk of onlookers is high, and there are still many loose cultivators who are not afraid of death in the cultivation world. Feeling the gazes, they came from all directions in the city. Qin Daoxian said with a cold face, Ji Suhui, you forcibly broke into my Qin family's important place today, provoked first, and then even uttered mad words to destroy my Qin family, such a frenzied act. Not only my Qin family cultivator took a photo to witness it but also watched it. The thousands of loose cultivators in Haixian City are also watching. Speaking, Qin Daoxian glanced at Ji Yinyuan and said coldly, you just said that Ji Suhui's trip was all done by him alone, and it has nothing to do with your Ji family, right? Hearing this, Ji Yanyuan's face turned pale immediately. He cupped his hands, trembling and speechless. Senior, I. You just have to answer yes or no. Yes. Ji Yinyuan bit his head and closed his eyes. Good. Qin Daoxian turned his head and looked at Ji Suhui. You heard, your Ji family said that you are responsible for everything you did before, and it has nothing to do with the Ji family. Now, I kill you, what else do you have to say? Qin Daoxian. Ji Suhui's eyes were split. How dare you? I am the third elder of the Ji family. If you kill me, my ancestor of the Ji family will never let go. However, before Ji Suhui finished speaking, Qin Daoxian stretched out his palm and then squeezed it hard. The next moment, the space cage collapsed rapidly. Seeing the collapse of the space cage, Ji Suhui naturally did not want to sit still. He was completely mad, and all kinds of desperate secret techniques that he did not want to perform before were madly displayed. Sure enough, under Ji Suhui's desperate efforts, his attack power skyrocketed again. The speed at which the space cage collapsed also quickly slowed down. Seeing this scene, Ji Suhui was overjoyed. There was a show. As the top real person on the Jindan real person list, Ji Suhui's strength is not as good as the real Jindan real person in the law realm. However, Ji Suhui found that although Qin Daoxian was a Jindan cultivator, his cultivation was only in the early stage of Jindan. This means that with Qin Daoxuan's mana, the fifth major Dao realm, the space cage of the law realm, will definitely consume a lot of mana. Such a violent consumption of mana, with Qin Daoxuan's initial cultivation of Jindan, may not be able to hold on to much breathing. As long as he tried his best to survive these few breaths, when Qin Daoxian was out of mana, he would have the opportunity to take advantage of his unpreparedness to escape. As for taking advantage of Qin Daoxuan's lack of mana, Ji Suhui had not thought about it, but immediately gave up on the idea. In the group of monks at the level of Jindan real person, they also made a rough division of the strength of Jindan stage. Among the Jindan cultivators, the weakest are naturally the cultivators who have just passed the Jindan Thunder Tribulation and have not even completed the tempering of mana. This kind of cultivator strength is only different from the fake alchemy cultivator. It belongs to the weakest existence among the cultivators in the Jindan stage, and even some cultivators of Qinjiao Zifu are stronger than this kind of Jindan cultivator. For example, Zhou Mingho, the head of the Zhou family, is probably at this level. The strength of the Jindan cultivator is further improved. Naturally, after the Jindan Thunder Tribulation, the mana tempering is completed, and the realm of the Avenue is stable. Generally speaking, after Jindan cultivator has survived the Golden Core Thunder Tribulation, the Dao realm can reach the third stage of star transformation. Except for the special state that has just passed through the Golden Core Thunder Tribulation, the Golden Core cultivator of this level is the strength of the lowest Golden Core cultivator under normal circumstances, that is, the strength of the ordinary Golden Core early stage cultivator. As for the future, in the middle stage of Jindan, including the division of strength between monks in the later stage of Jindan, the reference is not the cultivation base but the Dao realm. Only when the realm of the two Golden Core cultivators is at the same level, will they see the difference in their cultivation bases. Because at the Golden Core stage, the cultivation base only represents the gap between the two mana, and the realm of the Great Road is not only related to the strength of the mana after tempering, but also to the increase of the attack power. This is the reference that plays a decisive role in the strength of Jindan cultivator. Of course, generally speaking, monks with high Dao realm will definitely have higher cultivation. After all, the improvement of the Dao realm is more difficult than the improvement of the cultivation base. The treasures that monks can quickly improve their cultivation are rare in this world, but some big sects can always find them. But the treasures that quickly improve the realm of the Dao are really unheard of in this world. This is also the reason why Qin Daoxian was extremely shocked when he saw that the Xingqiang Kendo map could find another way and use the means of refining treasures to improve the realm of the Dao. In the group of Jindan real people, the cultivation base reaches the middle and late stages of Jindan, and the realm of the Dao reaches the first and middle stages of the Dao domain, which basically belongs to the strong among the cultivators of the Jindan stage. When the cultivation base reaches the late stage of Jindan, and the Dao realm reaches the high level of Dao domain realm, it is called the peak of Jindan. Jindan cultivators generally practice to this level, and they can consider breaking through the nascent soul stage. For example, Jianghu, the seventh elder of the Jiang family, is at this level, but Jianghu's Dao domain is related to the soul, and it happened to be beaten to death by Qin Daoxian, otherwise Qin Daoxian should not be his opponent at the beginning. And Ji Suhui's strength is even higher than Jianghu. Ji Suhui has not only reached the late stage of Jindan, but also the realm of the Dao has reached the high level of the realm of Taoism. What is even more terrifying is that his body refinement cultivation has also reached the peak of the blood-dropping realm. The sum of the three makes Ji Suhui directly listed on the Wangxinghai Jindan reality list, becoming the top Jindan real person in Wangxinghai. At this level of strength, it can be said that in the group of Jindan cultivators, it is usually difficult to meet an opponent. Ji Suhui's status among Jindan cultivators is also very detached. I usually see ordinary Jindan real people, and they are treated as juniors not commensurate with their peers. Only the top cultivators of Jindan and the top real people at the same level as him were regarded as peers by Ji Suhui. This behavior of his is not arrogant, but an unspoken rule agreed among Jindan cultivators. If the cultivation base does not reach the Jindan stage, they generally do not understand their unspoken rules. But the top real person is not the pinnacle of Jindan cultivators' strength. Among the Jindan cultivators, there is another kind of existence, known as the invincible real man. This kind of cultivator is the truly invincible existence among the Jindan cultivators. Not to mention ordinary Jindan cultivators, even the cultivators in the Yuanning period would not dare to say that they would win if they encountered such an invincible real person. It's just that Jindan cultivators of this level are not only extinct in Wangxinghai, but also extremely rare in Xianyun Prefecture. Therefore, it is usually not within the measurement range of the Jindan cultivators. Speaking of which, a Jindan cultivator from Wanxinghai could be regarded as an invincible real person. That is more than 400 years ago with the late Jindan cultivation level, he was able to rival the three Yuanning true monarchs of Qianyuan Jianzong, and he fought to the point of 2 deaths and 1 injury. This kind of terrifying strength that even the ordinary nascent soul true monarch looks up to, can completely call him an invincible existence in the golden core stage. That's exactly what happened. When the real person Xinjue appeared again, Qianyuan Jianzong attached great importance to it, not only laying down a lot of decoys, but also asking Jinhai Temple, the top-notch true monarch of Yuanning, to take action. Even with so many preparations, he still didn't catch Xinjue Jinren in the first time, but only caught the opponent's immortal clone. In the end, if it wasn't for Qin Daoxuan's deliberate attempts, coupled with Shenju's own carelessness, he would not be able to catch the other party at all. In the hands of the Hall Master of Jinhai Hall, the ordinary Yuan Ing Jinjuan is probably not his enemy, but he was smashed into the sand by Xinjue Jinren. It can be seen how difficult it is for a terrifying existence that can be evaluated as an invincible real person. In Ji Suhui's eyes, Qin Daoxuan's strength, although not at the level of an invincible real person, is much stronger than his top real person on the Jindan real person list. With Qin Daoxuan's strength even on the Jindan real person list, he is still among the best. After all, the realm of law is usually only attained by the true monarch Yuanning. There are very few people in Wanxinghai and even the vast Xianyun province who can reach the realm of laws in the golden core stage. What is even more terrifying is that Ji Suhui can even feel the breath of Jindan thunder tribulation on Qin Daoxian. What does that mean? This means that Qin Daoxian has just passed the golden core thunder tribulation not long ago. It stands to reason that this kind of cultivator is the one with the lowest strength among the Jindan cultivators, but now the other party has almost forced him to a dead end by relying on the Dao realm of the Law realm. With such a terrifying opponent, how dare Ji Suhui continue to fight recklessly? Desperate means to cultivate to the realm of him and Qin Daoxian, who will be less than the other. He tried his best to escape, so doesn't Qin Daoxian have a secret method to enhance his strength? Bullshit. This is the real reason why Ji Suhui fled for his life and did not dare to fight back. East District. The cultivators of the Qin family's military department all relaxed when they saw their young patriarch take action in person. Especially Qin Fuxing. Qin Fuxing's admiration for Qin Daoxian was almost blind, even though from the outsider's point of view, how could Qin Daoxian, a cultivator in the early stage of Jindan, be the opponent of Ji Suhui, a cultivator in the later stage of Jindan? But in Qin Fuxing's eyes, he believed that Qin Daoxian would not be defeated even if he met Yuanying Jinjuan. This confidence is brought about by Qin Daoxuan's miraculous victories time after time. Qin Daoxian didn't know the thoughts of the Qin family, but he could see Ji Suhui's thoughts. Fighting hard? You want to drain my mana? Seeing this, Qin Daoxian almost laughed out loud. As we all know, the Qin family cultivators are not afraid of fighting attrition. Seeing that Ji Suhui was trapped in the space cage with a radius of 10 feet, and frantically used his fists, shoulders, head and other body parts to hit the barriers of the space cage, Qin Daoxian did not continue to instill mana, and just consumed the opponent like this. Although Ji Suhui judged that Qin Daoxian consumed a lot of space to maintain the cage, but he used the secret method to fight for his life, and the consumption could be very low. In only half a stick of incense, Ji Suhui, who was bathed in golden blood, panted and looked at the shrinking space cage, his eyes showing despair. No. How can you have so much mana? Impossible. Impossible. Hearing Ji Suhui's desperate roar, Ji Yenyuan, who was with him, was quite speechless. Qin Daoxian owns the magical artifact of creating the White Lotus, which is not a secret in Wanxinghai at all. And the third elder of his Ji family seems to be unwilling to know the information of the Qin family and Qin Daoxian at all. Even whenever he reported information about Qin Daoxian, Ji Suhui always waved his hand casually, saying, "What a mere cultivator of Zifu, don't pay too much attention to such words." It is true that for the top real people on the Jindan real person list, no matter how powerful the cultivator of Zifu is, it is not worth caring about. But Qin Daoxian was a terrifying existence who defeated Jianghu not long ago. Even so, Ji Suhui still didn't care. Ji Yenyuan suddenly felt that the three elders have today, and they are not wronged. Compared with stupidity and weakness, arrogance is the most deadly. On the field, Qin Daoxian watched his palm collapse into a space cage the size of a glass ball, held it in his hand and played with it at will. Inside the space cage the size of a glass bead, a little man the size of fingernails is supporting the space cage on all fours, with a ferocious face, who is not Ji Suhui. Chapter 305. Yuanqin Xianqing. As the largest immortal city in Cangzhou, Taizhou, and Jingzhou, Yuanqin Immortal City is home to tens of millions of monks. It can be called the largest scattered cultivation immortal city in the entire Wanxinghai. As the largest scattered cultivation immortal city in Wanxinghai, Yuanqin Immortal City not only has a huge population, but also has extremely prosperous commerce. This huge immortal city is like a gluttonous beast, crawling at the junction of the three states, swallowing a huge amount of goods every moment. Scott. A spirit boat flying from the direction of Cangzhou quietly sailed towards the direction of Yuanqin Xianqing. On the spirit boat, the triangular clan flag that belongs to the Qin family is flying in the wind. Obviously, this spirit boat is from the Qin family in Cangzhou. Clan brother. On the deck of the spirit boat, a young cultivator cupped his hand towards another cultivator of the Fu character who was wearing a cyan robe. Can we reach a cooperation with Yuanqin Xianqing with only a few of us on this trip? Hearing this, the cultivator of the Fu character generation in the blue Taoist robe frowned. After a long while, he shook his head and said, "I don't care much anymore. The various types of medicinal pills produced by our 7th industrial zone have been seriously saturated, and the warehouses in Cangzhou Xianqing have piled up into mountains. If we don't find new sales channels, we can only stop work in the 7th industrial zone." But the young cultivator suddenly lowered his voice and changed it into a voice transmission of divine sense. "But Minister Qin strictly ordered that we must not make decisions on our own when it comes to cooperating with Yuanqin Xianqing." Hearing this, the cultivator of the blue-colored Taoist robe was suddenly dissatisfied. "You said it too, this is Minister Chen's order. Our Qin family has always listened to the young patriarch. When is it the Minister of Finance's turn to say forget it? Besides, without opening up new sales channels, The clan has already issued an order to temporarily suspend work in the 7th Industrial Zone. Why? Would you like our 7th Industrial Zone to stop work? Hearing this, the young monk gritted his teeth. So far, Guanhai Xianqing has established 9 major industrial zones, and each industrial zone has at least dozens or even hundreds of large and small factories. In today's Guanhai Xianqing, not only is there a competitive relationship between each factory, but even each industrial area is also a competitive relationship. Not to mention the Jianghu Island Industrial Zone for the time being, since the Chen family shifted the industrial focus from the Jianghu Island Industrial Zone to Guanhai Xianqing, the Jianghu Island Industrial Zone today is more of a research base. With the support of the Chen family's huge financial, material and human resources, various research institutions such as the Chongping Magical Instrument Research Institute, such as various magic instruments, medicinal herbs and formations, have sprung up like mushrooms after a rain. After a lapse of 5 years, Qin Daoxin has not been in the family retreat for the past 5 years. The Chen family has undergone earth-shaking changes again. Not only Guanhai Xianqing but Jianghu Island, the home of the Chen family, has also changed a lot. In addition to Jianghu Island, Guanhai Xianqing consists of 9 industrial zones. These 9 industrial zones constitute the industrial core of Guanhai Xianqing. Among them, the 9th industrial zone is the most favored and valued one among all the industrial zones of the Chen family. The heads of other industrial zones have always believed in private that the 9th industrial zone is the real son of the Chen family. That's exactly what happened. The most important and advanced factories such as the Qinjia Lingfu factory, the second-order power spirit armor factory, and the high-order pill medicine factory, are all concentrated in the 9th industrial zone. Those of the Qin family who know the inside story know that even if there are problems in the other 8 industrial zones, the Qin family will not be hurt. If there is a problem with the 9th industrial zone in Guanhai Xianqing, then the Qin family will really be destroyed after years of accumulation. However, although the industrialization of Guanhai Xianqing in the past 5 years has been smooth, it also faces huge challenges. The main difficulty is that Guanhai Xianqing produced too many kinds of instruments, medicine pills and magic talismans. Cangzhou alone cannot digest it at all. At the beginning, Qin Daoyan also kept Qin Daoxuan's order in mind and left a soup for the other immortals in Cangzhou. However, under the huge production capacity advantage of Cangzhou Xianqing's industrialization, Qin Daoxuan's so-called leave a mouthful of soup does not exist at all. The rapid increase in production capacity has brought about the ultimate cost reduction. The existence of Cangzhou Business Alliance has opened up the sales channels of the entire Cangzhou immortal cities. In other words, the major immortal cities in Cangzhou basically compete fairly on the same platform, and there is no trade protection between them. In this way, the advantages of all kinds of goods of the Qin family are too great. Even though the Qin family's various instruments and medicinal pills are not lower in price than other immortals, their goods are of better quality than other immortals due to the advanced production technology of the Qin family's factory. The monks are the most pragmatic group of people. Whether the magic weapon is good or not, how effective the medicinal pill is, not to mention the obvious difference, they can detect even the slightest difference and vote with their feet in the next purchase process. In this way, even if the Qin family had the intention to leave a mouthful of soup for the great immortal clans in Cangzhou, they would be powerless. Can't the Qin family deliberately lower the quality of their products in order to leave soup for the major immortals? Isn't this smashing your own signboard? Naturally, the Qin family would not do such a stupid thing. Cangzhou is now divided into 2 camps. One is the Zhou family headed by the Zhou family, and the other is the Qin family camp headed by the Qin family. Anyone with discerning eyes knows in their hearts that the outcome of these 2 camps will determine who will call Cangzhou in the future. In the face of the huge interest that determine the fate of the family, the friendship between Qin Daoxian and Zhou Mubai is nothing at all. This point, whether it is Qin Daoxian or Zhou Mubai, is well aware of it. The families in the Zhou family's camp, except for some families who are really optimistic about the Zhou family's ability to dominate Cangzhou, the rest of the family are all robbed of their business and interests by the Qin family, and they hate the Qin family's immortal clan. Among the various forces in the immortal world, only interests are eternal. When Qin Daoxian was trying to turn the tide, they regarded Qin Daoxian as a morning star and a savior, but when the interests of the 2 sides were in conflict, they could not wait to strangle this savior with their own hands. But even if it offends so many families and occupies most of the CZ market, the consumption of Guanhai Xianqing's production capacity is still a drop in the bucket. The pain of industrialization lies in this. The problem of sales caused by the explosion of production capacity is a headache for any industrial country in the previous life. In Qin Daoxuan's previous life, countries took different measures in order to digest their own industrial production capacity. Some use colonies to digest domestic production capacity, while others solve this problem through globalization. But whether it is the brutal colonial system or the gentle globalization policy, the essence is to digest production capacity through trade. Use advanced productive forces to exploit backward productive forces. What Qin Daoxian thought at first was to walk on two legs. The so-called walking on two legs is to carry out brutal colonization against the stubborn forces, and peaceful trade with the forces that are willing to open up commerce and trade. This is basically Qin Daoxuan's different strategies for the real demon world and Wan Xinghai in the future. Yuanqin Xianqing is the first step of Qin Daoxuan's warm strategy. Of course, both brutal colonization and moderate peaceful trade are based on strength or force. If the Qin family's force is insufficient, it is a lamb to be slaughtered. This is also what Qin Daoxian said: cooperation with Yuanqin Xianqing must wait until he breaks through the golden core stage. Because Qin Daoxian knew that only when he broke through to the golden core stage with various trump cards, would he have the confidence to wrestle with true monarch Yuanying. Only at this point his Zhangzhou Qin family is the real top clan of Wan Xinghai. The facts also developed as Qin Daoxian expected. But Qin Daoxian is not after all. He expected the development trend of the Qin family. The only thing he didn't expect was that someone in the Qin family did not listen to Qin Daolian's orders and expanded the sales market for Guanhai Xianqing without authorization. Moreover, the vision of the person in charge of the 7th Industrial Zone is also the same as that of Qin Daoxian, and he chose Yuanqin Xianqing as a breakthrough in the sales market. It's just that Qin Daoxian wanted to discuss cooperation with Jinjuan Yuanqin directly after his golden core stage. The Qin family, the person in charge of the 7th Industrial Zone, wanted to discuss cooperation with a Jindan real person under the jurisdiction of Yuanqin Xianqing. This is the scene of the Qin family cultivators secretly rushing to Yuanqin Xianqing at the beginning. Although the vision of the head of the industrial zone is good, it is not long-term enough. From the perspective of the 7th Industrial Zone, what he did was right, but from the perspective of the entire Qin family, his actions may bring disaster to the Qin family. After all, the large-scale production of medicinal pills represents huge benefits. If the outside world knows this kind of interest, I am afraid that even the master of the Wangxinghai like Qianyuan Jianzong will be moved. Even if the outside world is only guessing, such a big benefit is enough for a true monarch nascent soul to test the truth of the Qin family. Once this happens, it will undoubtedly be a disaster for the Qin family. But when Qin Daoxian broke through the golden core stage, the situation was very different. If Qin Daoxian breaks through the golden core stage with his various trump cards, he will not be afraid of the ordinary Yuanying Jinjuan. The more powerful true monarch nascent soul, hesitant to go to the Jinhai palace behind Qin Daoxian, will not take it lightly after weighing the pros and cons. As for the top nascent soul true monarch, he doesn't look down on this benefit. Regardless of the huge benefits involved in mass-producing magical medicinal pills, for top-notch nascent soul true monarchs at the level of Jinhai Hall's Hall Master, there is no shortage of spirit stones. No matter how many spirit stones there are, they can't make them break through to the level of Yuanqin Daojun. What's the use of pursuing hard? 4 top-notch nascent soul true monarchs like the Hall Master of Jinhai Palace, what really moved their hearts was a treasure that could improve their strength, preferably a treasure that could help them improve their avenues. For example, the Avenue Stone Tablet that the Master of Jinhai Temple obtained from Qin Daoxian. In the view of the Hall Master of Jinhai Palace, even if he were to give him all the spiritual stones in this world to exchange for the space law in this Avenue Stone Tablet, he would not change it. In the eyes of this top real person, there is not much difference between a spirit stone and a stone. How could it possibly go to great lengths to industrialize? What productivity to develop? Their goal is to break through to the primordial spirit stage, to transcend tribulation and become an immortal. In front of Yuanqin Xianqing, the cultivator of the Chen family stopped the family's spirit boat at the location dedicated to birthing the spirit boat. Everyone just flew off the spirit boat. A female cultivator in the purple house wearing a golden robe flew over with a few entourage. You are the cultivators of the Chen family. The female cultivator of the purple house in the golden robe glanced at everyone coldly and said casually, "Exactly, the cultivator of the Qin family in Xia Zhangzhou, Qin Furong, came here to ask the real person of Juk. This is the invitation from Xia." With that said, Qin Furong respectfully handed over a golden letter of worship. Jindan Jinren, of course, Can't be seen by any cultivator of Zifu if he wants to. The female cultivator in the golden robe took the invitation, glanced at it, and nodded. It is indeed the invitation of a real friend, but I have to remind everyone that real people are busy, and it is not something you can see if you want. Seeing this, Qin Furong immediately understood, and quietly handed over a storage bag and said with a smile, I hope the fairy will say a few words in front of Master Juk. The golden-robed female cultivator calmly took the storage bag, her divine sense swept over quickly, and a smile appeared on her frosty face. She glanced at Qin Furong with deep meaning and said, Friend Taoist has a heart. It should be. Qin Furong bowed his hands again and again. Under the guidance of the golden-robed female cultivator, everyone in the Qin family quickly stepped into Yuanqin Xianqing. Obviously this is the first time for the Qin family to come to Yuanqin Xianqing. Although Guanhai Xianqing has developed well over the years, when it comes to the prosperity of commerce and population size, Guanhai Xianqing is not as good as Yuanqin Xianqing. Along the way, the Qin family cultivator, like Grandma Lu entering the Grand View Garden, was curious about all kinds of novelties in Yuanqin Xianqing, which made the female entourage behind the golden-robed cultivator burst into laughter. Because they found that although the cultivators of the Qin family were all high in cultivation, basically like their masters, they had reached the Purple Mansion stage, but they looked like all the hairy boys and they were not calm at all. Cough cough. Qin Furong, who was headed by him, coughed, and everyone in the Qin family calmed down a little. In fact, these female entourages are not clear. The Qin family monks are not like Maotu boys, they are clearly Maotu boys. The youngest of them, less than 20 years old. A Zifu cultivator who is less than 20 years old has such a treasure as the essence of vitality. Otherwise, it is impossible for Wan Xinghai to have this kind of abnormality. Arrive. In front of a luxurious and spectacular spiritual mansion, the golden-robed female cultivator stopped. Everyone, I'm going to ask the real person you are waiting here. There is Fairy Lao. The female cultivator in the golden robe nodded casually, moved her lotus step lightly, and stepped into the spirit palace. Watching the female cultivator leave, the young cultivator behind Qin Furong snorted coldly and said, It's just a cauldron of a real Jindan, but it's so big. Never mind, Qin Furong shook his head, after all we have something to ask for. The young monk nodded, stopped talking and waited patiently. In Lingfu. The golden-robed female cultivator just walked into the Lingfu not far away when she bumped into Master Juk head-on. This Juk real person is one of the loose cultivators who were recruited by Yuanqin Jinjuan. The cultivation base is in the middle stage of Jindan, the realm of the Tao is the middle stage of Daoyu, and the strength is above the middle among the cultivators of Jindan. The real Juk is obese. This kind of obese cultivator is extremely rare in the cultivator group. Generally, even if there are cultivators of this size, it is also caused by cultivating special exercises. Real Master Juk was in a hurry at the moment and rushed out disheveled. Really, what's wrong? Seeing the anxious expression of Master Juk, the golden-robed woman changed her cold and arrogant look in front of outsiders, and asked Jiao Di. Reality Juk saw the golden-robed female cultivator, his face sank and he reprimanded, If you don't accompany me to practice well, where are you going to hang out? Hearing the word cultivation, a look of unnaturalness and hatred flashed across the golden-robed nun's face. It's just that the real person Juk obviously has something important to do, and at this time he has no intention to teach the golden-robed female cultivator a lesson. Forget it, Jinjuan Yuanqin wants to entertain a distinguished guest from Cangzhou. He ordered me to come and accompany you. You should wait at home. Having said that, he wants to leave. As everyone knows, when the golden-robed female cultivator saw this battle, her mind moved, she gently took the arm of the real Juk and said softly, Really, why don't you bring your concubine to meet the world? The golden-robed female cultivator said while looking at him with charming eyes. Being pressed against the soft body of the golden-robed female cultivator, and then being agitated by her seductive eyes, Jinren Juk unconsciously swayed in his heart. He still didn't know the plan of this golden-robed female cultivator. I saw Master Juk laughing loudly, slapped the golden-robed female cultivator on the buttocks suddenly and said, What a hoot! If you can really win the favor of that noble guest from Cangzhou, it is really a blessing for Master Ben. Let's go together. The concubine obeys. The golden-robed woman Xiao Yingying gave her a gift, making her even more charming. At this moment she had long forgotten that the Qin family cultivator who was waiting outside the Lingfu, rose into the sky with the light of Master Juk. Outside Lingfu. Qin Furong and the others were waiting patiently, until they saw Master Juk and the female cultivator in the golden robe escape, and then they all turned ugly. Brother, look. Qin Furong looked in the direction of the young cultivator's fingers, and his face became more gloomy. Come with me. Qin Furong immediately set up the escape light and chased after the real person Juk. As a city with a population of tens of millions, Yuanshan Xianqing naturally also has a forbidden space magic circle, but this magic circle is invalid for monks above the Zifu period. Therefore, in the fairy city you can often see the light passing by. Chapter 306. The speed of Jindan cultivators' escape was astonishing. Qin Furong and other Qin family cultivators rushed to catch up, but they still couldn't catch up with the real person Juk. Can only hang far behind each other. Sudden. Yuanshan Xianqing is a masterpiece of fairy music, and the strange floral fragrance is refreshing. Immediately afterwards, over Yuanshan Xianqing, a slender bird with colorful feathers pulled a gorgeous purple car and walked slowly in the sky. Colorful phoenix. That's Jinjuan Yuanshan's Ziyu car. Using a fifth-order magic weapon as a vehicle, it is indeed the most luxurious sanctuary true monarch in Wanxinghai. What is the fifth-order magic weapon? That multicolored demon phoenix is the real treasure of Yuanshan Jinjuan. It is rumored that this multicolored demonic phoenix of Yuanshan Jinjuan has the bloodline of the ancient 9 phoenixes. A powerful nascent soul true monarch. Fellow Taoist said even if the 5-colored demon phoenix has not yet transformed, its strength is comparable to a real person on the golden core list. Hearing this, the scattered cultivators who were watching below couldn't help nodding their heads. Since the colorful demon phoenix pulls the cart, the person sitting in this frame must be Jinjuan and his old man. Which distinguished guest from Cangzhou is he who deserves to be greeted by Jinjuan and his old man? Hearing this, all the cultivators looked at him in surprise. Seeing everyone looking at him with this kind of eyes, this loose cultivator couldn't help but feel a little strange, and he cupped his hands around him and said, "I'm going to say something wrong, why are you all looking at me like this?" At this time, a loose cultivator who was quite close to him said, "Dao Yu Wang has been in retreat for the past year in order to break through the late stage of foundation building. He doesn't know about the recent major events in Cangzhou, so don't be surprised." Hearing this, everyone nodded in understanding. At this moment, a beautiful-looking female nun stood up and said, "About a month ago, an earth-shattering event happened in Cangzhou." Oh. This sentence instantly aroused the interest of the monk surnamed Wang. Wanxinghai has a wide range, and it is difficult for other states to know what happens in each state. The last major event in Cangzhou that was known to the entire Wanxinghai was the fall of Zhenangwen. Even the corpse tide in Cangzhou is not a big deal for other states. After all, the corpse tide seems to be huge, but firstly, most of the zombies have no spiritual wisdom, and secondly, the cultivation base of zombies usually reaches its peak in the Zifu period. The existence of the Zifu period was in Cangzhou. Looking at the other states of Wanxinghai, a cultivator of the Jindan family was dispatched at random, and the corpse tide was calmed down. From this, it can be seen how weak Cangzhou is compared to other states in Wanxinghai. Wanxinghai consists of 27 states, of which the larger states such as Yuzhou, Dingzhou, Taizhou, etc., all have the Yuanying family in charge. And some states with a slightly smaller territory also have the Jindan family united. And a state like Cangzhou, where even the Jindan family has only the Yi family, is indeed relatively rare. Therefore, in terms of strength, Cangzhou is ranked at the bottom of the entire Wanxinghai. Of course, that was the former Cangzhou. Now, with the rise of the Qin family, Cangzhou is starting to look a little different. In the crowd, cultivator Zhang stared at the female cultivator intently. The female cultivator continued, "A genius cultivator has been born in Cangzhou." Genius monk? The monk surnamed Zhang disagreed. In Wanxinghai there were many more geniuses. But let alone become the true monarch of nascent soul, even if they can survive the golden core thunder tribulation, how many geniuses can truly become real people? Thinking of this, the monk surnamed Zhang pouted. Cangzhou is a small place with a small territory and few monks. What kind of genius can be born? Do not. The female cultivator shook her head solemnly. This time, Dao Yu Zhang, you are wrong. The genius born in Cangzhou this time is no trivial matter. His name is Qin Daoxian. Zhang Dao, you must have heard of his name. Qin Daoxian. The cultivator surnamed Zhang was talking about the name. Suddenly, he remembered something and clapped his hands. I remember the most recent issue of the Zifu Qinjiao list. It seems that this person is also called Chen Daoxian. Hearing this, the friend next to him slapped the storage bag and took out a bound booklet from the storage bag. The cover of the booklet reads, Zifu Qianjiao list in large characters. Gently opening the book, the first person in the line is Chen Daoxian's name. Zifu Qianjiao ranked first, the head of the Chen family in Sangzhou, Chen Daoxian. Introduction to the record. In the battle of the corpse tide in Sangzhou, we turned the tide and resisted the overwhelming majority of the corpse tide. Later, in a battle, he fought against more than a dozen top-ranked Zifu players. After the unified assessment of Qianyuan Jianzong, it was listed as the top of the Zifu Tianjiao list. The monk surnamed Zhang took the book and kept nodding. You said Chen Daoxian, but this person? I didn't expect that I would retreat for a year, and Fairy Qi Yao, the young sect master of Qianyuan sword sect, had already broken through to the golden core stage. Since Chen Daoxian has become the number one in the Zifu Tianjiao list, this list should be updated soon, right? As he said that, he flipped through the date on the back of the book and frowned. This is the list of Zifu Tianjiao that was updated 3 months ago. I remember that this list sold for 100 spirit stones. Hearing this, the friend surnamed Wu next to him nodded his head. Yes, I did spend so many spirit stones at that time. Hearing this, the female cultivator on the side covered her small mouth and chuckled. Then the money on the Wu Daoyu list is not worth it. Not only Fairy Qi Yao has broken through to the golden core stage, but the top of the Zifu Tianjiao list is also in the half a month ago, it broke through to the golden core stage. Jindan real person. When the cultivator surnamed Zhang heard the words, his face was full of envy, but then he frowned again. But this Chen Jinren is gratifying to break through to the golden core stage, but it won't cause trouble in our Yuanqin Xianqing. Everyone knows it, right? Do you think that only Yuanqin Xianqing knows? The female cultivator shook her head. The cultivator surnamed Zhang looked blank. Is it possible that there is another Jindan real person and the entire Wanxinghai knows about it? Don't say there is one more real person Jindan. Even if we have one more real master of Yuanying in Wanxinghai, it will not be so sensational, right? This time, not only the cultivator Zhang but others also nodded. The female cultivator simply said, Daoyu Zhang, you are right, not only are Yuanqin Xianqing, but now the entire Wanxinghai is probably discussing this new Jindan period Chen Jinren. Hearing this, the monk surnamed Zhang became even more puzzled. He hurriedly cupped his hands and said, Please also ask Fairy Luo to clarify the doubts. Seeing the cultivator surnamed Zhang begging for mercy, the female cultivator surnamed Luo no longer betrayed her, and said directly, Half a month ago, the real blood slaughtered the Chen family and made trouble in the Chen family's Guanhai Xianqing, and was turned over by this real Chen. The palm is suppressed. Etc. The cultivator surnamed Zhang raised his head quickly. The real blood slaughter you said was the one on the battlefield of Izumo. Hearing this, the female cultivator surnamed Luo seemed to be very contemptuous of this real blood slaughter, and she curled her lips. We Wanxinghai call the real blood slaughter, besides Ji Suhui, the third elder of the Ji family, who else? He. The cultivator surnamed Zhang frowned even deeper. Although the real blood slaughter is brutal, he is the top real person in the real Jindan real person list. How can a new Jindan cultivator in the Chenjin district be able to defeat the opponent? No wonder the monk surnamed Zhang was puzzled. If any monk came here he wouldn't understand what's going on here. These low-level monks may not be very clear about the strength of the ordinary Zifu and Jindan monks. But they know one thing, that is, those who can be on the Zifu Tianjiao list and the Jindan real person list must be in existence far beyond the same level. Therefore the monk surnamed Zhang was so puzzled. I'm not too sure. Anyway, Yuanqin Xianqing is rumored. After our Yuanqin Jinjuan heard about this, we bluntly said that this Chen Daoxian will definitely become Yuanying Jinjuan. Not only that, our true monarch also said, this Chen Daoxian even has the potential to become the top nascent soul true monarch? Top nascent soul true monarch. The cultivator surnamed Zhang was shocked. Wanxinghai monk talking about the top Yuanying Jinjuan, the first thing everyone thinks of is not the Qianyuan sword sect master, nor the Jinhai Palace Hall master, but Yuan Yingzhen, who has been sitting in the largest immortal gate in Izumo for a long time. Lin Wugwen. Your Majesty Lord Linwo. In the war between Wanxinghai and Izumo, the reason why Wanxinghai in the back was calm was because of the important towns of Xingguan established by Qianyuan Jianzong in Izumo. Among all the important towns in Xingguan, Lin Wugwen is the most important. Compared with Linwu Pass, the Jinan Pass lost by the Zhangzhou cultivators is not worth mentioning at all. If the Immortal Pass lost by Wanxinghai was Linwu Pass, not Jinan Pass, then the army of monks from the Shenqing Dao League would be able to go straight in, not only to recover large areas of lost soil, but also to directly threaten Wanxinghai from the sea. At that time, the offensive and defensive situation of the two sides will change in an instant, and Wanxinghai will also be caught in a precarious situation. No matter how strong the Qianyuan sword sect was, in the final analysis, there were two major sects standing behind the Izumo kingdom. Whether it is Shenyang sect or Qinghui Taoism in terms of strength, they are not under the Qianyuan sword sect. Qianyuan Jianzong can fight with one enemy and two for so long, and still has the upper hand. It can only be said that the time and place are favorable to people, and they are all on the side of Qianyuan Jianzong. Once the Shenqing Dao League seizes the opportunity to gain the upper hand, coupled with the hidden dangers within the Qianyuan sword sect, Wanxinghai will really fall into a state of doom. At that time, the major immortal races based in Wanxinghai can only be reduced to bereaved dogs. This is not only the major immortal clan, but even many far-sighted loose cultivators can see it. As cultivator Wanxinghai, everyone is now a grasshopper on a rope. Looking at the Izumo cultivators who were captured after the defeat, the Wanxinghai cultivator knew how tragic the end would be if they were defeated. Once Wanxinghai falls, high-level monks still have the possibility of escaping, and these low-level monks in this vast Wanxinghai have no choice but to wait for death. As for escaping, how could ordinary chi-cultivating cultivators and foundation-building cultivators cross this vast sea of stars with their own strength? Besides, even if he crossed the Wanxinghai, he still came to the nest of the enemy Izumo, and the end was even worse. Therefore, cultivator Wanxinghai has such reverence for Linwu Jinjuan, who has been guarding Linwu Pass for hundreds of years. Hearing this, everyone stopped talking. After all, they are just a group of foundation-building scattered cultivators. In the eyes of the cultivators in the Qi refining period, they are seniors, but in fact they know very little about the advanced cultivators. If Qianyuan Jianzong did not launch the two major lists, the Zifu Tianjiao list and the Jindan Real Person list, these low-level monks don't even know that there are so many top high-level monks in Wanxinghai. As for Yuaning Jinjuan, everyone knows even less. Zifu cultivator and Jindan cultivator, Qianyuan contact can also make a list to rank them and increase their fame. But Yuaning Jinjuan, especially the top-notch Yuaning Jinjuan such as Linwu Jinjuan, Jinhai Palace Hall Master, they are all Wanxinghai's biggest cards. Qianyuan Jianzong usually doesn't have enough time to keep these people secret, so how can he use their information to publicize them everywhere? Just like Qianyuan Jianzong will not know the details of the top Yuaning Jinjuan of the Shenqing Dao League. On the one hand, these top true monarchs are too powerful. No matter what kind of secrets the two sides send, it is impossible to hit the side of this existence without being discovered. On the other hand, these top true monarchs took very few shots, and even if they did, they would not do their best at all. Most of the time they were in retreat and cultivation. In this way, whether it is Qianyuan Jianzong or Shenqing Dao League, they will not dare to go all out until they are sure that their own side has overwhelming strength. Afraid of each other? This is the real status quo of Qianyuan Jianzong and Shenqing Taoist alliance. Below, at the scattered repair gate of Yuanqin Xianqing, seeing Jinjuan Yuanqin personally come forward to welcome this distinguished guest from Cangzhou, the whole Xianqing began to boil. High in the sky, the Qin family cultivator and the others who followed behind real Master Juk noticed that the group of scattered cultivators were boiling and cheering, and they were a little unclear. Brother, look. Chen Furong looked in the direction of the young cultivator's fingers, and it turned out that it was the real person Juk who stopped in front of a colorful car and handed over to the car. Due to the distance, Chen Furong could only see that the other party's gesture was somewhat respectful, but he didn't know what Master Juk was talking about. Brother, what should I do? The young cultivator of the Chen family was a little anxious. He could see that in Yuanqin Xianqing, even Master Juk was a respectful existence. There was no one else, so it must be Yuanqin Jinjuan, who had a great reputation among loose cultivators. Although the young cultivator of the Chen family was impulsive, he knew in his heart that a cultivator of the Purple House in his area rushed up so rashly and rammed into the real monarch's car. Even if the real monarch Yuanqin killed him on the spot, no one else could say a word. Come. Seeing everyone looking at him, Chen Furong pondered for a moment and said, You guys are waiting here, I'll go over alone. Brother, why don't you count? No, Chen Furong shook his head. For the sake of this cooperation, the gift we gave is not clear and must not be missed. I don't want to write down this shameful stroke for myself in the history of the family in the future. After saying that, Chen Furong took a deep breath and flew directly towards true monarch Yuanqin's car. Who? Before Qin Furong approached, there was a sound of scolding outside the car of true monarch Yuanqin. Slow. Just as the accompanying disciple was about to take action, Xinjuan Yuanqin's voice came from the car. Ask, what's the matter? Outside the car, a disciple accompanying him bowed and said, Yes, master. After finishing speaking, the disciple flew over to meet Qin Furong's escaping light, raised his hand and said, Stop here. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.